Chapter 3194. On the other side, Qiu Autumn Moon used her ruler's blade. The ancient scimitar combined with the god-destroying light made its power even more terrifying. Dozens of sword-bone beasts were cut in half every time it flew by. The other 5 geniuses were also using their own techniques. The 5 geniuses were astonishingly strong. Although they hadn't awakened their original secret techniques, their cultivation bases were profound. Moreover, their original divine force factor had been awakened for the second time. Their fighting strength wasn't any weaker than Lu Ming's. In fact, they were even stronger than Lu Ming. With the 7 of them working together, they easily killed a large number of sword-bone beasts. Even sword-bone beasts of the 4th King God realm were killed in an instant. They kept rushing toward the golden sword-bone beasts. Bang! Bang! However, at this moment, the ground cracked open. Several golden lights flashed and 3 golden sword-bone beasts charged toward Lu Ming's group. The wind whistled and the 3 golden sword lights cut through the void. Lu Ming's group of 7 was shocked. They focused on defending themselves. Lu Ming controlled the ruler's gate to suppress one of the golden lights. At the same time, Qiu Autumn Moon waved her hand. Her scimitar flew out and cooperated with Lu Ming to slash at the golden light. The other 5 geniuses worked together to block the other 2 golden lights. Boom! Boom! The ruler's gate hit the golden light and exploded with earth-shattering explosions. Sword chi spread out in all directions. The ruler's gate trembled and was sent flying back. At the same time, Qiu Autumn Moon's scimitar was also sent flying back. However, the golden light was finally blocked, revealing its true form. It was a golden sword-bone beast. However, it was different from the previous one. This one was 10 meters tall and its aura was intimidating. 5th King God Realm. Lu Ming's face turned solemn. This golden sword-bone beast was also in the 5th King God Realm. However, it hadn't awakened its original divine force factor. At the same time, the other 2 golden sword lights were blocked, revealing their true forms. They were also 10 meters tall golden sword-bone beasts. 3 5th King God Realm sword-bone beasts stood in front of the 7 geniuses. The 7 of them all had grave expressions on their faces. 3 sword-bone beasts at the 5th King God Realm weren't easy to deal with. However, they were not afraid. If they were alone, none of them could defeat a sword-bone beast. However, if the 7 of them joined hands, they might be able to defeat 3 sword-bone beasts of the 5th King God layer. Roar! 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 The 3 golden sword-bone beasts roared and their bodies emitted golden light. They turned into 3 golden battle swords and slashed towards the 7 people. Kill! Lu Ming's group of 7 also launched their own attacks at the 3 sword bones. Both sides were engaged in a chaotic battle. Lu Ming did not use the Tyrant God Spear. It was not the time for the Great Void Imperial family's holy courtyard to be held yet, so he still had to save some trump cards. The whirlpool of God power in his body spun crazily. Endless God power poured into the God's Gate. The God's Gate emitted an ancient aura. There was a strong suction force acting on the sword-bone beasts, affecting their movements. Then, the God's Gate suppressed them with great force. However, the 5th King God Realm sword-bone beast was indeed powerful. Its body turned into a battle sword. Every time it slashed at the God's Gate shook violently. Lu Ming felt the rebound force and was forced to retreat. If it weren't for Autumn Moon's help, he would have been defeated. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon joined hands to block the sword-bone beast for the time being. The other 5 geniuses joined hands to fight against the 2 sword-bone beasts. They had a slight advantage, but it was not easy to win. At the same time, the other sword-bone beasts gathered around them. Sword lights flew out from their bodies and slashed towards Lu Ming's group of 7. They were in a hurry and were at a disadvantage. Roar! At the same time, the 2-meter-tall golden sword bone beast at the top of the mountain roared. It took a step forward and charged towards Lu Ming's group. Oh no! Lu Ming's group was shocked. They were already at a disadvantage. If the king of sword bone beasts joined the battle, they would be in danger. Back off! The burly young man shouted. He wanted to retreat. Clang! At the same time, a sword light flew towards them from outside the mountain. The sword light was white and dazzling. It was like a flying immortal. Wherever the sword light passed, the sword bone beasts were killed. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 sword bone beasts were killed. How terrifying! Everyone's heart trembled. The power of this sword light was simply astonishingly powerful. After killing more than 100 sword bone beasts, the sword light changed its direction and charged towards the 2-meter-tall king of sword bone beasts. Roar! The king of sword bone beasts roared. Its golden light shone brightly and turned into a golden sword light that soared into the sky. The 2 sword lights met in the air and collided, creating a brilliant light. It was as if a sun had appeared in the sky. Then, rings of shockwaves spread out in all directions. Mountains were blasted apart by the shockwaves and turned into rubble. Buzz! The sword light vibrated. The king of sword bone beasts suddenly retreated and turned back into its original form. It retreated tens of thousands of meters and crashed into a mountain. It was repelled. The king of sword bone beasts was repelled. It was no match for the enemy. Everyone was shocked. What kind of existence was so terrifying? At the same time, the sword light in the sky finally dimmed, revealing a figure. It was a young man with silver hair. He was wearing a white robe and holding a 3-foot-long sword. His sword chi was soaring into the sky. The sword light just now was transformed by this young man. Kill! The young man said coldly. The sword light burst out, and he became one with the sword. Once again, he turned into a sword light and attacked the king of sword bone beasts. The king of sword bone beasts roared and pounced on the young man. Clang! Clang! The 2 sides continued to collide. However, the king of sword bone beasts was at a disadvantage and kept retreating. After more than 10 moves, the king of sword beasts roared unwillingly. The golden sword light collapsed and the king of sword bone beasts was revealed. The king of sword bone beasts looked unwilling. Then, with a cracking sound, its body split into 2 halves. It was dead. It was dead. The king of sword bone beasts had been killed. It had only been a dozen moves and the king of sword bone beasts had been killed. Everyone gasped and looked at the silver-haired young man in astonishment. His battle prowess was too terrifying. The 5th-layer godly king realm swordbone beast king, who had awakened the godly origin gene once, was killed in just a dozen moves. How strong! Lu Ming had a grave expression in his eyes. The highest cultivation level of the people who had come here was below the 3rd king god layer. In other words, the silver-haired young man was at the 3rd king god layer, but he could easily kill the king of sword bone beasts. His fighting strength was terrifying. Even if Autumn Moon had reached the 3rd king god layer, she might not have such fighting strength. The silver-haired young man gave Lu Ming a dangerous feeling. This was something that Lu Ming had never experienced before. Chapter 3195. Origin Ancient Character. It's the origin ancient character. At this moment, in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness, the quantifying formula shouted in shock. What? Origin ancient character? Where is the origin ancient character? Lu Ming was also shocked. There's an origin ancient character on that silver-haired kid. The quantifying formula shouted. What? He actually has an origin ancient character on him? Lu Ming was shocked. According to the quantifying formula, the origin ancient character was extremely rare, and there were only a few dozen in the entire primitive universe. It was already a heaven-defying opportunity for him to get 2 origin ancient characters. Apart from him, he had never seen a second person with an origin ancient character. Now, he saw it. The other party could actually get the origin ancient character. Needless to say, he was also a heaven-defying person. Which one of the origin ancient characters on him? Lu Ming asked. I don't know, I can only roughly sense the origin ancient character on him. The quantifying formula said. Since you can sense the origin ancient character on him, does that mean he can also sense the origin ancient character on me? Thinking of this, Lu Ming was shocked. The origin ancient character must not be leaked, otherwise he would be in big trouble. No, I can sense it because I'm the quantifying formula, which is extremely sensitive to all energy. Just now, when the silver-haired kid was fighting with the Swordbone Beast King, he activated the origin ancient character, so I sensed a little. If he didn't activate it, I wouldn't be able to sense it either. As for the other origin ancient characters, they don't have this function. You can ask the battle ancient character if he can sense it. The quantifying formula said proudly. The battle ancient character was speechless. I see. Lu Ming heaved a sigh of relief and felt more at ease. At the same time, there was a trace of fire in his heart. The other party had the origin ancient character on him. If he could get it, wouldn't his strength be stronger? But thinking about it was just thinking about it. The other party's current strength was far above his, and now it was just a thought. Roar, the Swordbone Beast King was killed, and all the Swordbone Beasts at the scene roared and then rushed in all directions in a disorderly manner. As soon as the Swordbone Beast King died, all the Swordbone Beasts panicked and fled frantically. Including the 3 golden Swordbone Beasts that were fighting Lu Ming and the others, they plunged into the ground and disappeared. Clang! The silver-haired young turned into a sword light and began to hunt those Swordbone Beasts that fled in all directions. Kill! Next, Lu Ming and the rest also took action to hunt the Swordbone Beasts. Now was a good time. The number of Swordbone Beasts was very dense. It would be very fast to kill them. Kill, kill. The others who were watching the battle from afar also rushed towards the Swordbone Beasts. In the beginning, they hunted very quickly. Slowly, many Swordbone Beasts scattered. Some burrowed into the ground, and their hunting speed slowed down. Lu Ming, Mid-Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling regrouped and hunted in one direction. In the end, it became the same as before. They slowly searched and hunted. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, they had been in this secret realm for a year. A year was up, and it was time for them to go out. The Bone Sword tribe only gave them a year. The reason why they only gave them a year and not longer was because they were afraid that too many Swordbone Beasts would be killed. Every once in a while, they would kill a portion of the Swordbone Beasts to give them enough time to reproduce and grow stronger. This way, they would have an endless supply of sword bones to use in the long run. Lu Ming and the others flew toward the exit and left the secret realm. Alright, almost all of you are out. Come with us to count the sword bones and exchange them for time to cultivate in the sacred heaven jade wall. An expert from the Bone Sword tribe said. Everyone followed the expert from the Bone Sword tribe to a spacious area. Then, they lined up and went forward to count their sword bones. You have a total of 3,000 gene of black sword bones. You can cultivate under the sacred heaven jade wall for 3 days. Take this jade talisman. It contains your cultivation time. An elder from the Bone Sword tribe handed a jade talisman to a young man after counting. Then, he continued to count the sword bones of the next person. You have a total of 1,500 gene of black sword bones. You can cultivate under the sacred heaven jade wall for 1.5 days. You have a total of 1000 gene of black sword bones. You can cultivate under the sacred heaven jade wall for 1 day. One by one, they began to count their sword bones. Most people did not have many sword bones. Not many could cultivate for a few days. Some could only cultivate for a few hours. As for those who could cultivate for more than 10 days, that was extremely rare. Soon, everyone's gaze fell on a silver-haired young man. This was the terrifying genius who had killed the king of sword-bone beasts. When he took out all the sword bones, the expert from the Bone Sword tribe who was in charge of counting the sword bones was shocked. There were piles of sword bones, black, silver, and golden. They were extremely dazzling. Count them. The silver-haired young man said lightly. Okay. The expert counted them and soon gave the specific data. A total of 100,000 gene of black sword bones. You can cultivate under the sacred heaven jade wall for 100 days. The elder from the Bone Sword tribe said. 100 days. Many people gasped and then looked at the silver-haired young man with envy. 100 days. Those who could only cultivate for a few hours were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Comparisons were odious. This person's combat strength is terrifying. I wonder where he came from. He's definitely not a genius from around the holy capital. He should be a genius from one of the heavenly king's mansions. But with such terrifying combat strength, I think he can challenge the top 10 of the holy capital. Indeed. I wonder how many terrifying people will appear in the 27 heavenly kings' mansions this time. Some people whispered. The silver-haired young man took the jade talisman and closed his eyes to rest. 100 days. Lu Ming was also speechless. Soon, it was Lu Ming and the others' turn. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon also gained a lot. Autumn Moon obtained 36 days of cultivation time. As for Lu Ming, he obtained 35 days. Of course, compared to the silver-haired young man, it was not as dazzling. As for Lan Ling, it was much less. She followed Lu Ming and the others and obtained a lot of sword bones. In the end, she obtained 12 days of cultivation time. It didn't take long for everyone to finish counting and obtain a jade talisman. Then, the Bone Sword tribe people led them to the sacred heaven jade wall. The sacred heaven jade wall was surrounded by layers of large formations. If not for the Bone Sword tribe experts leading the way, outsiders would not be able to enter. After passing through the layers of large formations, a huge jade wall appeared in front of them. This jade wall was incomparably huge. It was 100 feet tall and tens of thousands of meters long. All kinds of patterns appeared on it, and it looked incomparably ancient. Legend had it that the patterns on the sacred heaven jade wall were not carved by humans, but naturally. Chapter 3196. Alright, all of you can cultivate here. Activating the sagely heaven jade wall requires a vast amount of energy. Therefore, each of you should cultivate for as long as you need. When the time is up, your jade talismans will notify you. If anyone wants to take advantage of the situation and waste more time, don't blame the Bone Sword tribe for being impolite. An elite from the Bone Sword tribe said. Everyone nodded, then found a place to sit cross-legged under the sagely heaven jade wall and began to cultivate. Lu Ming, Chiu Moon, and Lan Ling also sat cross-legged under the sagely heaven jade wall. When they entered the state of cultivation, a mysterious energy enveloped them from the sagely heaven jade wall. At this moment, they entered a state of emptiness. In this state, their minds were extremely clear, and they were able to think and comprehend things much faster than usual. It's amazing. Lu Ming thought, then closed his eyes and began to comprehend the divine power of Moon. Immediately, Lu Ming made a discovery. He realized that comprehending the divine power of Moon here was at least 100 times faster than usual. Yes, it was 100-fold. Lu Ming was shocked by this effect. It was no wonder that so many people wanted to cultivate under the Sagely Heaven Jade Wall. What Lu Ming didn't know was that the Sagely Heaven Jade Wall was also related to one's talent. The higher one's talent and the higher one's comprehension, the greater one's harvest and the better the effect of cultivating under the Sagely Heaven Jade Wall. The worse one's talent, the worse the effect. Lu Ming could achieve this effect because of his amazing talent. He thought that everyone would have this effect. The Sagely Heaven Jade Wall was too heaven-defying. Under this effect, Lu Ming's comprehension of the divine power of Moon increased rapidly. Moreover, as Lu Ming continued to deepen his comprehension, the speed of his comprehension actually increased. Time flew by quickly. Many people's cultivation time was up, and their bodies emitted a glow. This was to remind them that their time was up. These people were reluctant to leave, and they really wanted to continue cultivating. However, after seeing the light in the eyes of the Bone Sword Tribe's elites, they gave up on this idea and left reluctantly. Slowly, there were fewer and fewer people under the Sagely Heaven Jade Wall. 6 days later, Lu Ming's heart stirred, and he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were shining brightly. He had broken through. The divine power of Moon had broken through, and he had awakened the origin divine power factor. The Sun-Moon divine power had already been awakened to 99%. It was only one step away from awakening. Now, with the help of the Sagely Heaven Jade Wall, Lu Ming's comprehension speed had increased to an astonishing level. He was able to comprehend the crux of the matter and break through the bottleneck. However, Lu Ming tried his best to restrain himself and did not let the aura of the awakened origin divine power factor leak out. After all, there were still quite a few people around. If they knew that he controlled many kinds of divine powers, it would be bad. Very soon, Lu Ming stabilized himself and comprehended another type of divine power, the Sun divine power. Of his divine power of his power of time. It was worth it. This trip was really worth it. The speed of improvement was too fast. Every time he awakened a new type of divine power, his combat prowess would increase by a level. Lu Ming cultivated in peace. The others had also gained a lot. The Sagely Heaven Jade Wall was mainly used to comprehend divine power, such as the Origin Divine Power Factor or the Origin Secret Technique. Lan Ling was also immersed in her cultivation. She could cultivate here for a total of 12 days. On the 10th day, her body emitted a special aura. Then, she seemed to see a beam of light, a beam of sword light. Origin Secret Technique. Lan Ling was overjoyed. She understood that she had touched upon the Origin Secret Technique. Lan Ling's talent was extraordinary. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to awaken the Origin Divine Power Factor. With the guidance of Blue Merchant, her foundation was incomparably solid. Now, under the stimulation of the Sagely Heaven Jade Wall, she finally had a shocking breakthrough. This fluctuation, it's the Origin Secret Technique. Nearby, the experts of the Bone Sword Tribe also noticed the change in Lan Ling, and they were all surprised. The Great Void Imperial Family's Sacred Academy is convening. More and more geniuses are gathering in the Holy Capital. That's right. She can awaken the Origin Secret Technique at the first level of the Divine King realm. She's a peerless talent. Several experts of the Bone Sword Tribe nodded. As time passed, Lan Ling's understanding of the Origin Secret Technique became clearer. On the 12th day, she could finally control the Origin Secret Technique. At this time, her cultivation time was up. A ray of light shone from her body, and Lan Ling woke up. Origin Secret Technique. I've finally awakened the Origin Secret Technique. I'll go back and get some guidance from Father. It'll be completely stable soon. Lan Ling stood up. She couldn't help but look happy. During this period, she saw that Lu Ming and Autumn Moon had both awakened the origin secret technique. As competitive as she was, she felt uncomfortable. Now that she had finally awakened the origin secret technique, she was naturally happy. After glancing at Lu Ming and Autumn Moon, who were cultivating, Lan Ling didn't stay. She left immediately. After leaving, she went straight to her residence. Ling, you're back. Why are you alone? Where's Lu Ming and the others? Blue Merchant asked in surprise when he saw that only Lan Ling had returned. They're still cultivating under the sacred heaven jade wall. It's time for me to cultivate. Father, let me show you the results of my cultivation. Lan Ling said eagerly. Then, she circulated her divine power and a ray of divine light appeared. This ray of divine light was like a sword light. Lan Ling's mind moved. This ray of divine light turned into a shocking sword light and slashed out. Origin secret technique. Blue Merchant could tell at a glance that this was the origin secret technique. He was overjoyed. Father, Ling has finally awakened the origin secret technique. However, my mastery is still low. I still need your guidance. Lan Ling said with a smile. Ha ha ha, of course. I'll teach you some of the tricks of cultivating the origin secret technique. Blue Merchant smiled. He had already taught these tricks to Lu Ming. The father and daughter began to cultivate here. As time passed, Lan Ling's mastery of the origin secret technique also became more and more proficient. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. On this day, Lan Ling was cultivating in the courtyard. The door of their courtyard was opened and a group of people walked in. Third uncle, why didn't you tell me when you returned to the holy capital? I could have held a welcoming dinner for you. A young man chuckled. Blue Maple, why are you here? Blue Merchant's face darkened. This young man was Blue Maple. Third uncle, I'm here to see you. Why do you look so unhappy? You're making me sad. Blue Maple deliberately put on a sad expression. However, in the next moment, he smiled and said, Third uncle, come, let me introduce you. Blue Maple pointed to a young man in luxurious clothes beside him and said, This is the son of the imperial tutor, Wu Fan. Chapter 3197. Wu Fan. Blue Merchant's heart sank. He had a bad premonition. Indeed, Blue Maple continued, the Lan family has already agreed to the imperial tutor's proposal. They want to marry cousin Lan Ling to brother Wu Fan. Today, we are here to take cousin Lan Ling away. These words made Lan Ling tremble. Wu Fan, your son-in-law, greets father-in-law. Wu Fan stepped forward and clasped his fist at Blue Merchant. Blue Merchant waved his hand and a wave of soul power stopped Wu Fan from bowing. I did not agree to marry my daughter to you. I am not worthy of being called young Master Wu. Father-in-law, you must be joking. Miss Lan Ling and I will be getting married soon. What's the harm in calling her a few days earlier? Wu Fan smiled. I have said that I did not agree to marry my daughter to you. Blue Merchant's face darkened. Third uncle, the higher-ups of the Lan family have already agreed to this marriage. You have to agree even if you don't want to. Blue Maple said coldly. What a joke. I was expelled from the Lan family long ago. I am no longer a member of the Lan family. What right does the Lan family have to decide my daughter's marriage? You can leave now. Forgive me for not sending you off. Blue Merchant waved his hand and ordered them to leave. Blue Merchant, you are the one who was expelled, not Lan Ling. Today, even if you don't agree, we will take Lan Ling away. Blue Maple's voice was cold. He had completely shed all pretense of cordiality. Ling heir will not come to the holy capital. Blue Merchant said. Blue Merchant, do you think we are stupid? Blue Maple burst into laughter. His gaze landed on Lan Ling as he said, "Don't think that we can't tell just because you've changed your appearance. We've been monitoring your every move ever since you stepped into the holy capital." "She is Lan Ling." Blue Maple pointed at Lan Ling. "I am Lan Ling." "So what? I will never marry Wu Fan. Get out of here." Lan Ling was unable to restrain her anger. She finally couldn't help but shout. "How dare you speak to young Master Wu Fan like that?" Blue Maple shouted. "Scram!" Blue Merchant shouted as well. His face was extremely cold. "Blue Merchant, don't be so shameless. Young Master Wu Fan is the son of the Imperial Advisor. His talent is unparalleled, and he is one of the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital. When the Holy Courtyard of the Great Void Imperial family opens this time, he will definitely be able to enter the top 10 and obtain the right to establish his own family. For him to take a fancy to Lan Ling is her great fortune, do you understand?" Blue Maple shouted. "I don't need such good fortune." Lan Ling shouted. "Hee, what a stubborn character." Wu Fan maintained a smile on his face. At this moment, he said, "However, I like this kind of character. I will tell you clearly that the woman that I, Wu Fan, have taken a fancy to must be mine. Today, you have to leave even if you don't want to. Men, take her away." Wu Fan waved his hand. Behind him, a middle-aged man stepped out and walked towards Lan Ling. Blue Merchant took a step forward and came in front of Lan Ling. He shielded Lan Ling behind him. His glabella shone and a strong soul power surged out. It turned into a palm and blasted towards the man. The middle-aged man's body shook violently and he retreated. "With me here today, no one can take Ling Air away," Blue Merchant said. "Hee, do you still think you are the Blue Merchant of the past? Your star core has been destroyed. What's the use of having a little soul power? Attack, take them down." The smile on Wu Fan's face disappeared. It was replaced by a cold murderous intent. Boom! Behind him, another 2 burly men stepped out. Together with the previous one, there were 3 of them. They rushed towards Blue Merchant. The 3 burly men exuded a violent aura. The 3 burly men were all at the 7th Heaven Divine King realm. "Get lost. Don't force me to kill you," Blue Merchant shouted. "Arrogant. Attack. Kill anyone who tries to stop you," Wu Fan ordered. Boom. 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 The 3 burly men exuded a terrifying aura. Their bodies were like mountains as they pounced towards Blue Merchant. Their violent aura surged towards Blue Merchant like stormy waves. Blue Merchant's glabella shone and a vast soul power appeared. It turned into a sword light and slashed out. The 3 burly men's attacks collapsed instantly. They retreated 100 meters away. There was a sword wound on each of their chests. Blood flowed out from it. "How can your soul power be so strong?" one of the burly men shouted in shock. Blue Merchant's star core had been destroyed, but he still had such strong combat strength. Both Blue Maple and Wu Fan were astonished as well. "Blue Merchant, how dare you hurt my men? You're courting death. Wu Shui, take him down. If he resists, kill him." Wu Fan shouted coldly. "Yes." Behind him, a man in a crimson robe rushed out. He waved his hand and waves of blood rolled out. It turned into a crimson saber and slashed towards Blue Merchant. This man was at the 9th Heaven Divine King realm. He was at the peak of the Divine King realm. His combat strength was terrifying. "Kill!" Blue Merchant shouted. He was enraged. His soul power turned into a sword and slashed out again. Boom! The sword light and the crimson saber collided. There was an earth-shattering explosion and the entire area shook violently. When the two of them collided, a pillar of light shot up into the sky and pierced through the clouds. Someone is fighting. What terrifying fluctuations! It's a fight between peak divine kings. Instantly, the people in the area were alarmed. They flew over and hovered in the air, watching from afar. That seems to be the son of the imperial preceptor, Wu Fan. That's right. There's also Blue Maple from the Lan family. Who are they dealing with? Blue Merchant. It's Blue Merchant. Someone shouted as he recognized Blue Merchant. What? The one from back then? Was he the one who attacked just now? Wasn't his star core destroyed? How can he still have such combat strength? The people in the area started to discuss among themselves. When they recognized Blue Merchant, they were even more shocked. The crimson-robed man trembled and took a step back. Kill! However, after the crimson-robed man retreated, he let out a roar and charged towards Lan Shang. His divine power surged like a tidal wave, and a star core could be vaguely seen burning in his dantian like the sun. The vast divine force turned into terrifying saber light and slashed towards Blue Merchant. The crimson-robed man's strength was definitely not weaker than the Jin family master and Qin family master of the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. The moment the crimson-robed man attacked, the 3 burly men moved as well. However, the 3 burly men did not charge towards Blue Merchant. Instead, they charged towards Lan Ling. The 3 burly men were 7th-layer Divine King Realm cultivators. Their divine force was as strong as a mountain as they charged towards Lan Ling. Facing such experts, Lan Ling did not have the slightest strength to resist. Lan Ling was about to fall into the hands of the 3 burly men. You're courting death. Lan Shang was infuriated. His soul power surged and turned into a terrifying sword light, bursting forth. One of the sword lights blocked the crimson-robed man's attack while the others charged towards the 3 burly men. Puff! Blood splattered and the 3 burly men were slashed apart. Chapter 3198. Blood splashed everywhere. The 3 middle-aged men at the 7th King God realm were cut into halves by Lan Shang's soul sword. They died on the spot. Let's go. After killing the 3 middle-aged men, Blue Merchant took Lan Ling and soared into the sky. They wanted to leave this place. Don't let them escape. Wu Fan shouted. The bloody man soared into the sky and slashed out many blood-red saber lights. There were 7 saber lights in total. They attacked Blue Merchant from different directions. Even Lan Ling was surrounded by them. If Blue Merchant continued to run, Lan Ling would be hit by the blood-red saber lights. Lan Shang's figure suddenly stopped, and the killing intent on his body surged. His eyes shone like 2 stars. That was the result of his extremely condensed soul strength. His forehead glowed, and his surging soul strength condensed into a huge palm that slammed out behind him. Boom! 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 The 7 blood-red saber lights couldn't withstand a single blow from the palm formed by Wu Fan's soul strength. They collapsed instantly. The palm didn't stop. It continued to hit the man in the blood-red robe. The man in the blood-red robe screamed in agony as he was blown away. He retreated for tens of thousands of meters before falling to the ground. Many people scanned the area with their spiritual consciousness. They realized that the man in the blood-red robe was no longer breathing. His soul strength had been destroyed. Many people gasped in shock. The man in the blood-red robe was an expert of the 9th King God realm. He was killed just like that. Didn't Blue Merchant have his stellar core destroyed? How could he still be so strong? Normally, once a person's stellar core was destroyed, his divine power would be depleted. Even if he still had a little soul strength, he wouldn't be able to do anything. However, Blue Merchant could kill a 9th King God realm expert with one blow. It went against common sense. After killing the man in the blood-red robe, Blue Merchant took Lan Ling and continued to fly. They wanted to leave this place. Stay. A cold voice resounded. There was an old man behind Wu Fan. He hadn't taken any action before. However, at that moment, he made his move. He opened his mouth and roared. His divine power boiled, and like a long river, it soared into the sky and swept Lan Shang into it. Blue Merchant unleashed a palm strike with all his might, colliding with the river of divine power. Rumble. It was as if an earthquake had taken place, causing the void to tremble violently. Blue Merchant's body shook violently as he brought Lan Ling back tens of thousands of meters. Whoosh! The old man stepped forward. No one saw how he moved, but in the next moment, he appeared 100 meters away from Blue Merchant. His speed was unbelievable. Divine Lord! Blue Merchant said with a solemn expression. The others were shocked as well. This old man was a Divine Lord realm powerhouse. Wu Fan was indeed the only son of the Imperial Tutor. He had a Divine Lord by his side at all times. Blue Merchant, you dared to kill an expert from the Imperial Tutor's residence. No one can save you. Quan Lu, attack. Break Blue Merchant's limbs and seal his soul. Bring Lan Ling back to the Imperial Tutor's residence. Today, I want to make her my woman. Let's see who can stop me. Wu Fan said domineeringly. Blue Merchant had dared to kill an expert from the Imperial Tutor's residence. In Wu Fan's heart, he had already sentenced Blue Merchant to death. Boom! The old man was called Quan Lu. A terrifying aura emanated from his body. The vast aura turned into a terrifying pressure that pressed down on Blue Merchant. Ling, back off. Blue Merchant's glabella shone brightly. His soul power covered his body to resist the pressure. At the same time, he ordered Lan Ling, father. Lan Ling was worried. The old man was a Divine Lord realm expert. Could Blue Merchant fight him? Back off. Blue Merchant repeated with a heavier tone. Lan Ling could only back off obediently. Let us go. Blue Merchant looked at Quan Lu. You still want to leave? Dream on. Today, don't even think about leaving. Wu Fan's voice was extremely cold. You better not force me. Otherwise, I'll destroy you all. Blue Merchant's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Blue Merchant, don't try to intimidate others. Your star core has been destroyed. I don't believe you can still be a match for a Divine Lord. Lan Feng shouted. Quan Lu, attack. Wu Fan ordered. Boom! Quan Lu attacked. His body burned like a star. His divine power surged and condensed into a giant python that pounced on Blue Merchant. The giant python streaked across the void. The space shook violently. The vast pressure caused the surrounding people to retreat in fear. Blue Merchant's eyes were solemn. His soul power condensed into a giant hand that grabbed forward. However, the giant python swung its tail and hit the giant hand. The giant hand shook violently and shattered. Blue Merchant's body retreated. A cripple wants to fight against a Divine Lord. You're courting death. Wu Fan sneered. After forcing Lan Shang to retreat, Quan Fei's God Force continued to surge out, and the giant python once again attacked Lan Shang. Blue Merchant tried his best to resist. However, he was no match for Quan Lu. He was suppressed and was in a precarious situation. Blue Merchant is nothing to be afraid of. Brother Wu, I'll take Lan Ling down. Tonight, you can train her well. He. Lan Feng laughed proudly. His body flashed and he charged towards Lan Ling. You, get lost. Lan Ling saw Lan Feng approaching. She shouted angrily and slashed at Lan Feng with her sword. Lan Feng smashed Lan Ling's sword light with his palm, causing Lan Ling to retreat continuously. You think you can stop me? Surrender. Lan Feng placed one hand behind his back and strode towards Lan Ling. Lan Ling gritted her teeth and activated her divine power. A beam of divine light flew out from her divine power and merged with her combat sword. Swoosh! Lan Ling slashed at Lan Feng again. Sword Qi whistled. The power of this attack was several times stronger than before. Your secret technique of origin? Lan Feng roared in disbelief. A combat sword appeared in his hand. He unleashed his divine power and slashed. Clang! Their sword light collided. Lan Feng's cultivation and awakened divine power of origin were higher. Even though Lan Ling had awakened her secret technique of origin, she was still no match for Lan Feng. Her sword light dissipated and she retreated again. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. You actually awakened your secret technique of origin. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Lan Feng roared in his heart. He was extremely jealous. He had wholeheartedly wanted to awaken his secret technique of origin, but he couldn't. Back then, he wanted to seize Lu Ming's divine power source bead to awaken his secret technique of origin, but he couldn't do so in the end. Now, Lan Ling had awakened her secret technique of origin. He was envious, jealous, and hateful. Interesting, interesting. The more talented a woman is, the more exciting it is to play with her. Wu Fan saw that Lan Ling had awakened her secret technique of origin. His eyes shone brightly and he became more and more interested. So what if you've awakened your secret technique of origin? Do you think you can stop me? Surrender now. Lan Feng roared and unleashed his full strength. Lan Feng's strength was indeed shocking. Lan Ling couldn't block his attack at all. Her body flew out and she vomited blood. She was severely injured. Then, Lan Feng condensed a large hand and grabbed Lan Ling. He wanted to capture Lan Ling in his hand. Ling, I'm going to fight it out with you. Blue Merchant saw this scene and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He roared in anger. His glabella shone brightly. Then, a small person rushed out from his glabella. Chapter 3199. Blue Merchant's glabella shone brightly and a small person walked out from his glabella. This small person looked exactly like Blue Merchant. The small person emitted light and a vast soul power spread out in all directions. You're crazy. The Divine Lord Realm Old Man was shocked. Kill. Lan Shang let out a long howl. That tiny person actually transformed into a sword of light. Swoosh. The light sword cut through the void like a ray of immortal light and charged towards the Divine Lord Realm Old Man. The Divine Lord Realm Old Man shouted and set up 18 layers of defense in front of him. However, when the light sword slashed through, the 18 layers of defense were instantly pierced. The light sword did not stop and flew through the Divine Lord Realm Old Man's glabella. The Divine Lord Realm Old Man's body stiffened. His eyes widened, filled with shock and disbelief. Then, his body fell straight to the ground. There was no longer any aura on his body. Dead. A Divine Lord Realm powerhouse was killed just like this. There weren't any wounds on the surface of his body, but his soul had already been thoroughly annihilated. No, impossible. Wu Wu roared. Wu Fan let out a low growl in disbelief. That was a Divine Lord. Although he was only a first-level Divine Lord, Blue Merchant Star Core was already destroyed. How could he kill a Divine Lord Realm expert? Swoosh. At this moment, a sword light flew out from the Divine Lord Realm Old Man's glabella. It was the sword light condensed by Blue Merchant's soul. However, this sword light was many times dimmer than before. If it was a star before, it was now a candle flame. It flew back to Blue Merchant's glabella. Blue Merchant's body trembled and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Although he had killed the Divine Lord Realm Old Man, he had also suffered heavy injuries. That move just now was executed by Blue Merchant by burning his soul power. Although he had killed his opponent, his soul power had been exhausted at an alarming rate. Even his lifespan had been greatly reduced. Let go of Ling. After Blue Merchant killed the Divine Monarch Old Man, he charged towards Blue Maple and sent a palm strike towards Blue Maple. At this moment, Blue Merchant's killing intent was cold. He was completely enraged and wanted to kill Blue Maple. Since he had already killed a few people, he didn't mind killing Blue Maple. Blue Maple was already in a daze. He was so frightened that he even forgot to dodge. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. Ah, save me, save me! Blue Maple screamed hysterically. Just as Blue Merchant's palm was about to hit Blue Maple, a terrifying force suddenly came from afar. A saber light slashed toward them at a shocking speed. Boom! The blade light chopped down on Blue Merchant's big hand. The Blue Merchant spat out a mouthful of blood, and his figure retreated rapidly. Rumble! A terrifying tremor came from that direction. It was as if a magnificent army was charging over. The terrifying pressure made it difficult for everyone to breathe. Then, everyone saw a group of soldiers in armor walking over in the air. There were only a dozen soldiers in this group. However, the aura that they exuded was extremely terrifying. Especially the few people walking at the front. Their auras were even more terrifying than the Divine Monarch Old Man. Divine Monarchs. Without a doubt, the few people walking at the front were all Divine Monarchs. They were even stronger than the first-level Divine Monarch Old Man. It's the Imperial Guards. Someone said in a hoarse voice. The Taishu dynasty had a vast territory. However, there were also many enemies. Hence, they had never stopped preparing their weapons. The number of soldiers was uncountable. They had many terrifying soldiers guarding all directions. However, among all the soldiers, the Imperial Guards were undoubtedly the strongest. They were in charge of guarding the Taishu holy capital. Those who could join the Imperial Guards were the strongest of the strongest. They had unlimited potential. Many famous people in the Taishu dynasty had come from the Imperial Guards. The speed of the Imperial Guards was very fast. In an instant, they were close to Lan Shang. A strong pressure pressed down on Lan Shang, causing him to retreat continuously. Captain Wu, it's you. That's great. When Wu Fan saw the Imperial Guards, he was elated. Master Wu Fan, what's going on? The leader of the Imperial Guards asked. Seeing this scene, Blue Merchant's heart sank. Captain Wu, this Blue Merchant is lawless and his methods are vicious. He continuously killed people from the Preceptor's mansion. He even killed a Divine Monarch. We must take him down and punish him severely. Wu Fan roared. What? He killed a Divine Monarch? The Imperial Guards were shocked. They looked at Blue Merchant. They naturally knew Blue Merchant. However, wasn't Blue Merchant's star core destroyed? How could he kill a Divine Monarch? Captain Wu's eyes shined. He looked at Lan Shang and said, so it was soul force. Lan Shang, your talent is truly admirable. But today you have killed people in the holy capital, and even killed a Divine Lord Realm powerhouse. This is a violation of the law. You must come with us. Sigh. Lan Shang sighed. He knew that he wouldn't be able to leave today. He had killed a Divine Lord powerhouse and had already exhausted all of his soul force. In fact, he had consumed a great deal of his soul force and was no longer able to fight. Moreover, the strongest people in the Imperial Guards were even stronger than the old man. Even if he didn't exhaust his soul power, he was no match for them. I can go with you. However, this has nothing to do with my daughter. I hope you can let her go. Blue Merchant looked at Lan Ling and said. No, father. You can't go with them. Lan Ling shouted. The prison of the Imperial Guards was one of the most terrifying places in the Taishu dynasty. Not many people could come out after entering. Leave quickly. Blue Merchant shouted. Leave. Today, none of you can leave. Wu Fan's cold voice sounded. Captain Wu, take down Blue Merchant. I will deal with his daughter. After saying that, Wu Fan walked towards Lan Ling. You dare? Blue Merchant was furious. He circulated his remaining soul power and was about to attack Wu Fan. However, Captain Wu waved his hand and a chain flew out, binding Blue Merchant. No matter how Blue Merchant struggled, it was useless. The difference in strength was too great. Captain Wu also sighed in his heart. As an Imperial Guard, he had his duty. Blue Merchant had killed people in the Saint Capital. Moreover, he had killed a monarch god. He had to take down Blue Merchant and bring him to the Imperial Guard's prison for investigation. Moreover, the Imperial Tutor had great power and influence over the Imperial Guards. If he disobeyed Wu Fan's orders, he wouldn't have an easy time in the future. Ha ha ha, Blue Merchant, you still want to fight with me? Dream on. I will take good care of your daughter. Wu Fan sneered and walked towards Lan Ling. He waved his hand and tried to grab Lan Ling. Wu Fan was one of the Saint Capital's 10 heroes. He was stronger than Lan Feng. Lan Ling couldn't resist at all. After a few moves, she was enveloped by Wu Fan's hand. Lan Ling was about to fall into Wu Fan's hands. Chapter 3200. Wu Fan used his god power to form a giant hand and surrounded Lan Ling. It looked like it was about to grab Lan Ling. Blue Merchant's eyes were filled with despair. Back in the day, he was unparalleled and his name shook the holy capital. Even Wu Fan's father, the current Imperial Tutor, had to greet him with a smile. But now, even a few juniors could bully him. What was even more tragic was that he couldn't even protect his own daughter. A tiger would be bullied by a dog. At this moment, a gust of wind blew over. This gust of wind was extremely strange. It was like a spring breeze and had no power. However, when it blew against the giant hand that Wu Fan had formed, his hand immediately dissipated. On the other hand, Lan Ling was pulled back by a force. She kept moving away from Wu Fan, Blue Maple and the rest. Who is it? Wu Fan shouted angrily. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the surroundings. Young man, don't go too far. Where it's possible to let people off, let them off. An old voice rang out. Following which, an old man walked out from the crowd. This old man looked very old. His beard and hair were snowy white. His face was full of wrinkles and his eyes were cloudy. He slowly walked out. He looked like he was walking slowly, but his speed was shocking. Before anyone could react, he had already arrived beside Lan Ling. Old man, was it you who attacked just now? How dare you meddle in my affairs? I think you must be tired of living at your age. Wu Fan shouted. Young man, you have a big temper. Let me calm you down. The old man said plainly. Then, he slapped across the air. No one saw how the old man attacked. They only saw the old man wave his hand. Then, a crisp slap resounded through the crowd. Wu Fan screamed in pain as his body flew out. He spun a few hundred rounds in the air before coming to a stop. Everyone realized that half of his face was swollen like a pig's head. His teeth were flying everywhere. It was a horrible sight. Old man, how dare you hit me? Captain Wu, attack and cripple this old man. I want to feed him to the dogs. Wu Fan screamed hysterically. However, he didn't notice that Captain Wu's face was very serious, and even had a trace of shock. Captain Wu took a few steps forward, then bowed and cupped his fists towards the old man. "Senior, are you the thousand-saint old heavenly king?" As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Everyone who had heard of this name widened their eyes and stared blankly at the old man. In the entire Taishu dynasty, there was only one person who could be called this, and that was the previous heavenly king of the Thousand Saints' heavenly king residence, one of the 27 heavenly kings' residences. Among the 27 heavenly kings' palaces, there were some who were strong and some who were weak. The difference in strength between the strong and the weak was huge. As for the Thousand Saints' heavenly king residence, it was ranked in the top 3 among the 27 heavenly king residences. Holy Thousand Old Heavenly King was the grandfather of the current Holy Thousand Heavenly King. He was a legendary figure who had lived for countless years. No one could tell how old he was. However, there was one thing that was universally acknowledged, and that was the strength of the Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King. He was one of the top existences in the Taishu dynasty, and was one of the few people who stood at the peak. Some people said that if the Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King residence was still in charge of the Thousand Saints Heavenly King residence, then the Thousand Saints Heavenly King residence would not be in the top 3, but first. However, the Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King had not appeared for countless years, and many people thought that he had fallen. Could he have appeared again? Blue Maple's and Wu Fan's eyes widened as they revealed astonished looks. Oh! I didn't expect that after not appearing for so many years, there would still be people who remember an old man like me. The old man smiled slightly, which meant that he agreed with Captain Wu's words. I was fortunate enough to meet the old heavenly king once in the past, and I have never dared to forget it. I didn't expect to see the old heavenly king again today. It is truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Captain Wu said respectfully. The old heavenly king smiled and looked at Blue Merchant. I didn't expect that the hero of the generation back then would end up like this. How sad. The Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King sighed. Old Heavenly King, long time no see. How have you been? It's a pity that I can't salute you now. Blue Merchant said. Everyone's eyes flashed. Obviously, Blue Merchant and the Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King knew each other. No need to be so polite. The Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King waved his hand casually and sighed. Back then, one was you, and the other was Jing Yu. You were the 2 people I thought the most highly of. But now, one has fallen and the other has been crippled. How sad. Everyone was shocked and didn't dare to interrupt. Jing Yu was a taboo in the Taishu dynasty, especially in the Taishu sacred capital. No one dared to mention him. Only people like the Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King dared to say that. Blue Merchant lowered his head and didn't say anything. The few of you, Lan Shang has met me once before. Can you let him go? The Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King looked at Captain Wu. Captain Wu hesitated. No. At this moment, Wu Fan shouted again. He cupped his fists at the Thousand Holy Old Heavenly King and said, Old Heavenly King, I respect you because you are my senior. I didn't dare to say anything when you reprimanded me, but, Wu Fan pointed at Blue Merchant and said, Blue Merchant killed a few experts from the Imperial Preceptor's residence in the Saint Capital, including a Divine Lord. He has already violated the rules. This rule was set by the previous Saint Emperors. In the Saint Capital, unless it is under certain circumstances, no one is allowed to kill. Senior, although you have a high status, you can't violate the rules of the Saint Emperors, right? There was a rule in the Taishu sacred capital that no one was allowed to kill. However, it was okay to fight with each other. It was okay to injure or cripple the other party, but no one was allowed to kill. If one wanted to kill someone, they would have to do it under certain circumstances, such as entering the life and death arena. This rule was set by an ancient saint emperor many years ago, and it had been in use for so many years. Thousand holy old heavenly king's eyes flashed. Wu Fan was shocked and retreated until he was behind Captain Wu. Thousand holy old heavenly king was too famous. Even his father, the imperial preceptor, had to be polite to him. He was afraid that thousand holy old heavenly king would kill him in a fit of anger. The rules of the saint emperors were useful to ordinary people, but they were useless to people like thousand holy old heavenly king. Old heavenly king, I have a duty to fulfill. Please don't make things difficult for me. Captain Wu cupped his fists again. He had no intention of letting Blue Merchant go. Old heavenly king, you don't have to make things difficult for me. Let them take me away. I just want to ask old heavenly king to save my daughter. Don't let her fall into their hands. Blue Merchant said. He naturally knew that thousand holy old heavenly king was not afraid of the rules of the saint emperors. However, he still had a bunch of disciples and grand disciples. If thousand holy old heavenly king forced his way in, he would implicate the thousand holy heavenly king residents. AI, don't worry. Your daughter will be fine. Thousand holy old heavenly king sighed. Indeed, he had to worry about the safety of the thousand holy heavenly king residents. Chapter 3201. No, I have to take Lan Ling away too. Wu Fan shouted. What law did that girl break? You want to take her away? Holy old heavenly king asked. She's my fiancée. Of course I have to take her away. Wu Fan bit the bullet and said. Bullshit, since when did Ling become your fiancé? The matter between you and the Lan family has nothing to do with me and Ling I've had nothing to do with the Lan family for a long time. Blue Merchant shouted. Oh, so you're forcing a deal? How dare you? Holy old heavenly king's eyes flashed and a terrifying aura spread out. Even though he was hiding behind Captain Wu, Wu Fan sat down in midair and almost peed his pants when he was suppressed by the aura. He had a feeling that holy old heavenly king could kill him with just one look. Captain Wu's body trembled and he took a few steps back. His eyes were filled with horror. It was just an aura, but it made him feel like he could not bear it. He knew that the gap between him and holy old heavenly king was too big. Also, what do you plan to do with Blue Merchant after taking him away? Holy old heavenly king looked at Captain Wu. Captain Wu swallowed his saliva and said respectfully, I'll handle it impartially. I'll report it to the Holy Emperor and await his punishment. You'd better do that. I don't want anyone to interfere with the Imperial Guards. Otherwise, I'll go to the Holy Emperor and ask him. Holy old heavenly king glanced at Wu Fan. His meaning was obvious. He hoped that the Imperial Guards would handle the matter impartially and did not want the Imperial Tutor's residents to interfere with Blue Merchant. Don't worry, holy old heavenly king. This will not happen. Captain Wu said hurriedly. His back was drenched in cold sweat. He knew that if he did not handle this matter well, his future would be bleak. Wu Fan's face turned ugly. He had planned to use some underhanded means to kill Blue Merchant. However, it seemed that Captain Wu would not let him do so. Senior, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Captain Wu cupped his fists and gave his subordinates a look. Then, he led Blue Merchant away. Wu Fan glared fiercely at Lan Ling before he left with Blue Maple. Senior, please save my father. Lan Ling begged the old heavenly king with tears in her eyes. Don't worry. The Holy Academy of the Great Void Imperial family is about to open. In the 100 years before and after the opening of the Holy Academy of the Great Void Imperial family, the Imperial Guards in the Holy Emperor Palace generally won't touch prisoners. I'll think of a way after a while. Let's go. After the old heavenly king finished speaking, he waved his hand and brought Lan Ling back to the place where the blue merchant and the others originally lived. Lu Ming naturally had no idea what was happening outside. He wholeheartedly cultivated under the sacred heaven jade annulus, comprehending all kinds of divine powers. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, he had cultivated for 35 days under the sagely heaven jade wall. His time was up. Lu Ming opened his eyes and ended his cultivation. There was a hint of joy in his eyes. After 35 days of cultivation, he had gained a lot. Originally, he had a total of 3 kinds of divine powers. After awakening the origin divine power factor, he still had 5 kinds of divine powers that were 99% awakened. However, after 35 days of cultivation, the other 5 kinds of divine powers had all broken through and awakened the origin divine power factor. In this way, his 8 kinds of divine powers had all awakened the origin divine power factor, causing his strength to soar. This sacred heaven jade wall is really amazing. It can steal the fortune of heaven and earth. Wouldn't the geniuses of the Bone Sword tribe be super terrifying? Lu Ming thought to himself. If they cultivated under the sacred heaven jade wall every day, wouldn't the people of the Bone Sword tribe be super powerful? However, on second thought, that might not be the case. This was because the sacred heaven jade wall required a large amount of energy to maintain this effect. Also, not everyone would have the same effect as Lu Ming when cultivating under the sacred heaven jade wall. The more talented one was, the better the effect. If one's talent was poor, the effect would naturally be poor. Also, Lu Ming speculated that if the origin divine power factor was awakened too many times, for example, after awakening it twice, the effect would be greatly reduced. Lu Ming had personally verified this point. After awakening all 5 types of divine grade God force, Huang Xiaolong still had 2 days left. In these 2 days, he spent his time comprehending the sovereign's God force. He hoped that he could take another step forward and awaken his origin God force twice. However, the improvement of the sovereign divine power was not particularly shocking. The reason why the other 5 kinds of divine powers improved so much was that they had not been awakened before. Once they were awakened, the effect of comprehending them would be greatly reduced. Otherwise, the sacred heaven jade wall would be too heaven-defying. No matter how strong the Bone Sword tribe was, they would not be able to keep it. Mid-Autumn Moon had 1 more day than Lu Ming. Lu Ming waited quietly. A day passed quickly and Mid-Autumn Moon also finished cultivating. After Mid-Autumn Moon finished cultivating, the two did not stay and left the Bone Sword tribe. On the way, Mid-Autumn Moon, how's your cultivation? Lu Ming asked. My other divine powers have awakened the origin divine power factor. Young master, how about you? Mid-Autumn Moon blinked and asked. All awakened? Good. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Mid-Autumn Moon's divine powers were almost the same as his. This meant that Mid-Autumn Moon's other divine powers had also awakened the origin divine power factor. Same for me. Lu Ming smiled. The two chatted as they walked towards their residence. When they returned to their residence, they saw Lan Ling in a daze. Miss Lan, where's Lan Shu? Lu Ming asked. Father, after being asked by Lu Ming, Lan Ling's big eyes were filled with mist and tears almost fell out. What's wrong with Lan Shu? Lu Ming's heart trembled. He had a bad feeling. Father, he was taken away by the Imperial Guards. Lan Ling said. As she spoke, tears rolled down her cheeks. At this moment, Lan Ling was no longer the arrogant Lan Ling, but a helpless and weak girl. Taken away by the Imperial Guards? What happened? Lu Ming hurriedly asked. Immediately, Lan Ling told him what happened that day. Blue Maple, Wu Fan, damn it. Lu Ming growled, emitting a cold murderous intent. All these years, although he called Blue Merchant Lan Shu, in his heart, he had already regarded him as his teacher. Now, Blue Merchant had encountered such injustice. He was furious and wanted to kill his way to the Imperial Guards and save Blue Merchant. Lu Ming took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. With his current cultivation, if he killed his way to the Imperial Guards, any Imperial Guard would be able to kill him with a slap. Where's the holy old heavenly king? Where is he? I'll pay him a visit. Lu Ming continued to ask. Little guy, are you looking for me? A voice suddenly sounded behind Lu Ming. It was very close. Lu Ming was shocked. There was someone behind him, but he didn't feel it at all. He hurriedly turned around and saw an old man smiling at him. Chapter 3202. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He immediately understood that this was the old Heavenly King. Greetings, Senior Heavenly King. Lu Ming cupped his fists and bowed. Xiao Moon also bowed together with Lu Ming. No need to be so polite. The old Heavenly King waved his hand, and a gentle force lifted Lu Ming. Then, the old Heavenly King stared at Lu Ming with bright eyes and nodded. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. Lu Ming was a little confused for a moment. Senior, may I know how to save Lan Shu? If there's anything you need, I'll do my best. Lu Ming asked. There is a way to save Blue Merchant. The old Heavenly King said. There is a way. What is it? Lu Ming, Lan Ling, and Xiao Moon's eyes lit up. Only you three can do it. The old Heavenly King said. Us? Lu Ming and the other two were puzzled. The three of them were just juniors. Their cultivation base was not high. Compared to the Colossus of the Taishu dynasty, they were not worth mentioning. How could they save Blue Merchant? The opportunity to save Blue Merchant is when the Taishu Imperial Sacred Courtyard is held. The old Heavenly King continued to explain, every time the Taishu Imperial Sacred Courtyard is held, those who enter the top 10 will be qualified to establish their own family. However, those who enter the top 3 will not only be qualified to establish their own family, but also can make a request to the Heavenly King. As long as the request is not too harsh, the Heavenly King will usually agree to it. So, as long as one of you enters the top 3 when the Taishu Imperial Sacred Courtyard is held, you can propose to the Heavenly King to release Blue Merchant. This condition is not too harsh. I believe the Heavenly King will agree to it. Enter the top 3. Lu Ming and the other two's eyes lit up, but then dimmed. During this period, they had already seen some terrifying geniuses. There were too many experts. Not to mention the top 3, even if it was the top 10, Lu Ming would feel a lot of pressure. He was not confident. The top 3 were many times more difficult. Lan Ling, in particular, clenched her fists and trembled. She knew very well that even if she had awakened her origin source secret technique, with her strength, she had no hope of entering the top 10, let alone the top 3. She felt hopeless. To be honest, with your current strength, not to mention the top 3, you might not even be able to enter the top 10. The old Heavenly King attacked mercilessly. Top 3, what should we do? There's only a few decades left. Unless I can break through to the Divine King realm in a few decades, I'll have a chance. But how can I do that in a few decades? Lu Ming's mind raced. If he were to cultivate step by step, he would definitely not be able to break through. What should he do? For a moment, Lu Ming had no idea what to do. This old man can give you a chance. At this moment, the old Heavenly King spoke again. What opportunity? Lu Ming and the other two showed a glimmer of hope. A jade bottle appeared in the old Heavenly King's hand and said, inside this jade bottle, there's a large formation that this old man has set up. It's very beneficial for the cultivation of the Divine King realm. Go in and cultivate. As for how much you can gain, it depends on your own fortune. Lu Ming and the other two naturally agreed without hesitation. The old heavenly king's cultivation was unfathomable. The formation that he set up must be extraordinary. However, this old man reminds you that you will have to face extreme pain when you enter the jade bottle. You must be mentally prepared. The old heavenly king said. It's okay, a little pain is nothing. Lan Ling clenched her fists. Lu Ming and Xiao Yu had determined looks in their eyes. If you want to gain, you naturally have to pay a price. A little pain was nothing. Senior, let the two of them go in first. I still have something to do, I'll go in later. At this moment, Lu Ming spoke. According to the old heavenly king's words, his cultivation might break through if he entered the jade bottle to cultivate. If Lu Ming continued to break through, he would reach the divine king realm. However, Lu Ming still had two types of divine force in his dantian, the golden dragon divine force and the multi-eyed divine force. These two types of divine force were not divine-grade divine force. Lu Ming wanted to break through to the divine king realm with all of his divine-grade divine force. Otherwise, it would be best to disperse these two types of divine force. Once they formed a star nucleus, it would be difficult to change them after breaking through to the divine king realm. For example, Autumn Moon used to have two types of divine force that were not divine-grade divine force. Before she broke through to the divine king realm, she had dispersed them. In any case, after breaking through, he could cultivate other divine-grade divine powers. However, if he broke through with a divine-grade divine power before breaking through to the God-King realm, it would be very difficult for him to find a divine-grade divine power with similar attributes to his own. Lu Ming had two paths in front of him. One was to disperse the multi-eyed divine force and the golden dragon divine force. The other was to find a divine-grade divine force that corresponded to the two types of divine force. After cultivating for so long, it would be a pity to disperse them. Lu Ming planned to find a divine-grade divine force with similar attributes to the two types of divine force. Lu Ming did not find any in the 9-Ju Heavenly King residence. However, this was the Great Void Holy Capital. There should be a divine-grade divine force with similar attributes. Alright, the two of them can go in first. The old Heavenly King nodded his head in satisfaction. He then pulled out the cap of the jade bottle. From the opening of the jade bottle, a faint divine light spread out. At the same time, a suction force enveloped Autumn Moon and Lan Ling. Autumn Moon and Lan Ling's bodies involuntarily flew towards the opening of the jade bottle. Their bodies became smaller and smaller until they disappeared into the opening of the jade bottle. How much you can gain will depend on yourselves. This is all I can do to help. The old Heavenly King said softly as he closed the jade bottle. Senior, I'll be heading out for a while. I'll be back soon. Lu Ming cupped his fists at the old Heavenly King. He then left his residence and headed towards the largest market in the Great Void Holy Capital. Since the Great Void Holy Capital was so prosperous, the market was also bustling. There were all sorts of treasures available. Lu Ming specifically looked for shops that sold all sorts of divine skills, secret techniques, and divine skills. After inquiring about a few clans, Lu Ming finally found two kinds of mystical techniques. One of them was called the Divine Eye Heaven Incantation, which was a divine-grade divine power similar to the multi-eyed divine power. The second one was called the Primordial Dragon Mantra. The primordial dragon force that was cultivated was also of the divine grade, similar to the golden dragon force. After finding the two types of divine skills, Lu Ming was overjoyed. After flipping through them, Lu Ming memorized the two types of divine skills and returned to his residence. Senior, I'm ready. Lu Ming said. Alright, go in. The old Heavenly King took out the jade bottle and pointed it at Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt a suction force acting on him as his body flew towards the opening of the jade bottle. After Lu Ming entered the jade bottle, he felt a strong force pulling him downwards. Soon, he landed at the bottom. He looked around and did not see Autumn Moon and Lan Ling. Presumably, they were scattered and not in the same place. Chapter 3203. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, suddenly, a gust of wind blew and divine light filled the air, sweeping toward Lu Ming. Divine lights from all directions shrouded Lu Ming in an instant, forming a terrifying wind pressure. Bam! Lu Ming almost fell to his knees from the wind pressure. Pain! Instantly, Lu Ming felt a tearing pain all over his body. His skin, muscles, and bones felt like they were about to be torn apart by the wind. Endless pain drowned him. Block it, Lu Ming roared and circulated his divine power with all his might. The 10 divine power vortexes in his body spun rapidly. 10 types of divine power gushed out and covered his body, resisting the wind pressure from the outside world. However, the divine power vibrated and was constantly being worn down. Lu Ming then used the 9 layers of crimson gold armor and ice chains, but they were all useless. They were completely worn down. The wind pressure continued to act on him. Endless pain came. Lu Ming growled. He could only stabilize his mind and resist the endless pain. But in the next moment, Lu Ming made a discovery. As he resisted, there was a strange energy in the surroundings that seeped into his body and merged with his divine power. It made his divine body and divine power slowly strengthen. The wind pressure formed by the divine light could even seep into the depths of his divine power and temper his cyclone. As a result, the divine power in the cyclone continued to condense, becoming more and more solid. The cyclone was slowly approaching the star core. Although this kind of improvement was not very fast, it was many times faster than cultivating step by step outside. Moreover, it was improving all the time. This kind of improvement could be seen and felt. Over time, the rate of improvement would be astonishing. Just like that, Lu Ming endured it and tempered himself in this kind of pain. The jade bottle was a furnace, and Lu Ming was like a weapon being tempered. Not only him, but Lan Ling was also going through the same thing in the autumn moon. Day after day, time flew by quickly. Later, Lu Ming found that not only could his divine body and divine power be tempered, but even his soul was being tempered. Although the improvement was far less than the divine body and divine power. However, every bit of improvement in the soul was rare and precious. First, I'll cultivate the divine eye heaven art and the Archean dragon mantra. Lu Ming's heart moved. He used these 2 divine techniques to cultivate these 2 divine powers with the help of the external tempering. Lu Ming only needed to cultivate the first level. Lu Ming was very familiar with the cultivation of divine techniques. Not long after, he cultivated the divine power of 2 types of divine-grade divine techniques. After a while, Lu Ming ignited the divine fire and integrated the multi-eyed divine power and the golden dragon divine power into the divine fire. After the fusion, the 2 divine powers began to strengthen these 2 divine powers. In such an environment, these 2 divine powers improved very quickly. After a few years, these 2 divine powers grew to the half-step God-King realm. They were the same as other divine powers, but they did not awaken their divine power origin factor. When these 2 divine powers reached the half-step God-King realm, the next step was to break through to the God-King realm. Just like that, day after day, year after year passed. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had cultivated here for 30 years. Over the past 30 years, Lu Ming cultivated day and night, enduring the pain all the time. His body, including his soul, seemed to have been reforged and looked brand new. 30 years of perseverance, day after day, was exchanged for great gains. In his dantian, the 10 divine power vortexes were condensed to the extreme. They emitted a sparkling light like 10 suns. Boom! Suddenly, the 10 divine power vortexes let out a rumbling sound, and then a powerful energy burst out, forming circular shockwaves that rushed out in all directions. Lu Ming's body surged with a powerful aura. This was the aura of a god king. He broke through. After 30 years of arduous cultivation, the 10 types of divine powers in Lu Ming's Dantian had finally transformed from divine power vortexes into star cores. The 10 star cores floated in his Dantian, shining brightly. At the same time, from all directions, waves of powerful energy converged towards Lu Ming. In this jade bottle, other than the array, there was an endless stream of energy. These energies poured into Lu Ming's body and were refined, turning into divine power. In his Dantian, the 10 star cores became more solid. Lu Ming's realm also slowly stabilized. Lu Ming did not stop. He continued to cultivate. Time passed, year after year. After an unknown amount of time, a suction force suddenly acted on Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming involuntarily flew upwards. In the next moment, the surroundings changed. Lu Ming looked around and found that he had returned to the courtyard where Blue Merchant had lived. Beside him, Autumn Moon and Lan Ling were also there. The two of them were also looking around. All right, there are still 3 months before the Great Void Imperial Academy opens. You should familiarize yourselves with your current realms. An old voice sounded. It was old Heavenly King Qiansheng. Thank you, Holy Thousand King. Lu Ming cupped his fists in gratitude. This time, he had gained a lot. The 10 divine grade divine powers in his body had all transformed into star cores. He had entered the God King realm. Moreover, his cultivation had reached the peak of the first heaven of the God King realm. Compared to before his breakthrough, his divine power was much stronger. His strength had skyrocketed. You're welcome. Familiarize yourselves with your new realms. Holy Thousand King waved his hand and kept the jade bottle. In the next moment, he disappeared. He was really elusive. How's your progress? Lu Ming looked at Autumn Moon and Lan Ling. Young master, I've broken through. Autumn Moon's crisp voice sounded. Then, a powerful aura spread out from her body. Third heaven of the God King realm. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Autumn Moon's progress was amazing. Before entering the jade bottle, Autumn Moon's cultivation base had just reached the second heaven of the God King realm. Now, she had reached the third heaven of the God King realm. She was not far from the fourth heaven of the God King realm. One should know that Autumn Moon had mastered 8 divine grade divine powers. It would be difficult for her to improve. This was definitely a big gain. In addition, Autumn Moon had mastered the God-killing light and the God's blade. This time, when the Great Void Imperial Academy opened, she would definitely give everyone a big surprise. Boom! On the other side, Lan Ling's body also emitted a powerful aura. Third heaven of the God King realm. Lan Ling had also broken through to the third heaven of the God King realm. She had been in the first heaven of the God King realm before, but now, she had broken through twice. However, it was normal. Lan Ling had only cultivated one type of divine power. It was much easier for her to break through compared to Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. It was normal for her to break through to the third heaven of the God King realm. Lu Ming, come. Let's exchange some pointers. This time, I will defeat you. Lan Ling's eyes were bright as she looked at Lu Ming. Her cultivation base had reached the third heaven of the God King realm, and she had awakened the origin secret technique. This had boosted Lan Ling's confidence. Alright, let's exchange some pointers. Lu Ming smiled. Chapter 3204. This time, the three of them had experienced a surge in their cultivation, but they didn't have the time to experience it properly. It was inevitable that they wouldn't be able to use it smoothly. That was why Holy Old Heavenly King had released them a few months earlier to let them experience it properly. Sparring with each other would undoubtedly allow them to control their own strength better and faster. Lan Ling's body emitted a powerful aura as she fully released her third-layer Divine King Realm cultivation. Clang! The sound of a sword rang out as Lan Ling drew her sword. A dazzling sword light slashed towards Lu Ming. Its speed and power were shocking. A long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand as he circulated the 10 types of divine power in his body. It surged towards the long spear like floodwaters. At the same time, Lu Ming activated the battle character's secret art to quadruple his fighting strength and swept out his spear. Clang! The long spear and the sword light collided, causing a violent explosion. Then, Lan Ling's sword light shook violently as her body was pushed back. How is your strength so strong? Lan Ling was shocked. In the Divine King realm, the gap between each layer was huge. She was 2 layers higher than Lu Ming, but Lu Ming didn't use his origin secret technique. In a head-on clash, she was no match for him. You're not strong enough. Lu Ming shook his head. Humph, take this. Lan Ling snorted. A ray of divine light appeared in her hand, emitting an ancient fluctuation. It merged with the battle sword in her hand. Origin secret technique. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He didn't expect Lan Ling to have also awakened her origin secret technique. Whoosh! Lan Ling thrust her sword towards Lu Ming again. After using her origin secret technique, the power of Lan Ling's sword soared. The God's Gate appeared above Lu Ming's head and suppressed Lan Ling. The God's Gate collided with Lan Ling's sword light. The result was the same as before. Lan Ling was pushed back by Lu Ming. Again. Lan Ling gritted her teeth and charged towards Lu Ming again. The two of them exchanged a few moves. Lan Ling was completely at a disadvantage. She wasn't Lu Ming's opponent. Although Lan Ling was at the 3rd layer Divine King realm, she had only awakened her origin divine power's origin secret technique. On the other hand, Lu Ming had mastered 10 types of divine powers. 8 of them had awakened the origin divine power factor. In addition, he had triggered the Battle Word Sutra to increase his combat power by 4 times. Although the difference between the Divine King realm and King realm Divine King Secret King realms Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming could make use of these advantages to close the gap of 2 cultivation levels. Of course, if Lan Ling's divine power factor had been awakened twice, it would be difficult for Lu Ming to equalize the difference. He might have to use the ancient god body. All in all, Lan Ling's strength had increased a lot. With her current fighting strength, she could kill an ordinary 4th layer Divine King realm warrior. If it was before Lu Ming had broken through to the King realm, it would have been difficult for him to deal with her. But now, it was easy for him. After a dozen moves, Lan Ling's origin secret technique had exhausted her origin secret technique. She stopped the fight. Then, Lu Ming and Xiao Moon exchanged moves. Xiao Moon had reached the 3rd layer Divine King realm. She was truly terrifying. The two of them had exchanged dozens of moves, but there was no clear winner. Of course, the two of them were holding back. They didn't use their trump cards. Lu Ming was surprised by Xiao Moon's strength. He estimated that even if he used his trump cards, he wouldn't be able to defeat Xiao Moon. Then, the 3 of them took turns to exchange moves. Soon, they were able to control their origin secret technique and their origin secret technique. At this time, there was still a month before the opening of the Great Void Imperial Academy. At this time, Lu Ming had another great breakthrough. Lu Ming had awakened the origin secret technique of the Sovereign Secret Technique. The origin secret technique had awakened a second time. Originally, the origin secret technique of the Sovereign Secret Technique had been at the peak of the first awakening for many years. This time, Lu Ming's cultivation had increased sharply. He had entered the King realm, and his understanding of the various origin secret techniques had increased by a large margin. In addition, he had become more familiar with the usage of his origin secret technique. Naturally, the sovereign secret technique had awakened a second time. All of this happened naturally. The second awakening of the sovereign secret technique had undoubtedly raised Lu Ming's fighting strength to another level. Top 3. Lu Ming clenched his fists. His gaze was resolute. This time, he had to enter the top 3 and rescue Blue Merchant. On this day, the 3 of them did not continue to spar. Instead, they left their residence and went out for a walk. They wanted to find out more about the current situation. Of course, the main point was to find out which origin secret technique of the current origin secret technique had the most potential to enter the top 10. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will be victorious. As soon as they went out, they realized that the Great Void Holy City had become even more lively. The Great Void Holy City was vast and its surface area was shocking. However, walking on the streets still felt like there was a sea of people. Various races walked on the streets. It was very lively. Soon, they heard a lot of useful information. This was because countless people were guessing which origin secret technique of the sovereign secret technique would enter the top 10 this time. This time, the origin secret technique of the sovereign secret technique has gathered. However, the ones most likely to enter the top 10 are still the 10 talents of the Holy Capital. That's right. In the past, the 10 talents of the Holy Capital had the highest chance of entering the top 10. Of course, there are exceptions. This time, there are definitely exceptions. This is because the various Heavenly King palaces have also produced many terrifying origin secret techniques. For example, the Holy Maiden of the Thousand Saints Heavenly King Palace, Qian Shengxian. She is extremely talented and her combat strength is shocking. She has a chance of entering the top 10. There is also the unparalleled Heavenly King Palace, which is ranked first among the 27 Heavenly King Palaces. They have also produced a terrifying origin secret technique. He is definitely not weaker than Qian Shengxian. What is even more shocking is that he is from the Great Zhou Heavenly King Palace. Haven't you heard of the unparalleled swordsman, Di Jiani? This person was born in a small world. However, he killed his way up and displayed his unparalleled talent. It is said that in that small world, this person is known as the Shocking Sword Emperor. This shows how powerful he is. Don't forget about another person. That is the War God family of the Nine Blades Heavenly King Palace. It is said that this generation of the War God family has produced a terrifying person. He is said to be the most talented person in the history of the War God family. He is known as the reincarnation of the War God family. He is going to lead the War God family to its former glory. He is extremely terrifying. Lu Ming and the other 2 walked around and heard information about the terrifying origin secret technique of the talents of the Heavenly King Palace. Di Jiani? Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Among all the origin secret techniques, he was the most interested in this person. This was because, like him, Di Jiani had also killed his way out of a small world. I wonder which one of them is the white-haired youth that we met back then. Lu Ming thought of the white-haired youth that he had met in the Bone Sword tribe's secret realm. That white-haired youth had terrifying combat strength. Moreover, he had mastered the origin source ancient characters. His strength was unfathomable and he was definitely someone who could enter the top 10. The 3 of them walked around and collected the records of the origin secret techniques of the talents that people thought highly of. They planned to study them. Chapter 3205. Big news, big news. The number 1 prodigy of the War God family, Chu Qingkong, is challenging one of the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital, Deadly Spear Yuan Jie. Suddenly, a piece of news blew up in the streets. What? Chu Qingkong is challenging deadly spear Yuan Jie. Is this for real? Countless people were shocked. Chu Qingkong was the strongest prodigy of the war god family. He was known as the man who had surpassed the war god. And deadly spear Yuan Jie was one of the 10 heroes of the holy capital. The core area of the Taishu dynasty was vast. It was far above the various heavenly kings and had given birth to countless prodigies. Among the countless prodigies, those who could be ranked as one of the 10 heroes were definitely terrifying existences. The two of them were going to fight in advance. It was hard not to cause a commotion. Where is their challenge? When is it? In half a day at the Qilin battle stage. In half a day. Quick, there's not much time left. Let's go to the Qilin battle stage. Let's go. Instantly, countless people swarmed towards the Qilin battle stage. The transportation arrays to the Qilin battle stage were also full. Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling also headed towards the Qilin battle stage. Two prodigies who were expected to enter the top 10 would fight in advance. This was a good opportunity to see each other's strength and compare it with their own. How could they miss it? When the three of them finally arrived at the Qilin battle stage, they realized that it was already packed with people. Countless people were surrounding a vast fighting ring. Around the battle stage, there were 4 huge Qilin statues guarding the 4 directions. This battle platform was very famous in the Great Illusionary Divine region. It was said that even godly lords could fight on it without damaging the battle platform at all. Ordinary people who wanted to fight on this battle stage were not qualified. The battle stage would not open and was covered by a large array. However, with Chu Qingkong and Yuan Jie's fame, they were still qualified to fight on this battle stage. Who do you think is stronger between Chu Qingkong and Yuan Jie? Many people were waiting and chatting as they guessed the strength of the two. It's hard to say. However, I have seen Yuan Jie in action. His spear is deadly and his combat strength is terrifying. Even if he is a divine king, it's a piece of cake for him to kill someone of a higher realm than him. I wonder how powerful Chu Qingkong is. Chu Qingkong is known as the strongest genius in the history of the War God clan. He should not be weak, right? I've never seen him in action. Everything is fake. Who doesn't know how to brag? That's true. There was a lot of discussion at the scene. Some people favored Yuan Jie, while others favored Chu Qingkong. Look, that's the Thousand Sage proclamation from the Thousand Sage Heavenly King Manor. Suddenly, someone looked in a certain direction. There was a woman with a long skirt that fluttered in the wind. Her beauty was unparalleled, and her appearance was not inferior to Autumn Moon or Lan Ling. The peerless goddess, Qian Shengxian, was a very popular genius. Also, the heaven-startling sword emperor, Di Jianyi. Another person exclaimed. In another direction, a silver-haired young man stood in the air, his white robes fluttering in the wind. It's him. He is Di Jianyi. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. This young man was the white-haired young man that he had met in the Bone Sword tribe's secret territory. He was the one who controlled the Origin ancient characters. It turned out that this person was Di Jianyi. Like Lu Ming, he was a peerless genius from a pocket dimension. Following that, people kept exclaiming because they recognized many peerless geniuses. Several of the 10 prodigies of the holy capital had come. Obviously, these people were very concerned about Chu Qingkong and Yuan Jie's strength and regarded them as potential opponents. Time flew by quickly. Yuan Jie is here. Suddenly, someone shouted. Everyone looked in a certain direction. In the sky, a black-robed young man with a long spear on his back walked over step by step. This person was Deadly Spear Yuan Jie. Yuan Jie's eyes were sharp, and his body emitted a terrifying killing intent that was as cold as a knife. Wherever he passed, the crowd automatically made a path for him. Open the battle stage. A loud roar reverberated throughout the scene. A burly man in charge of guarding the Qilin battle stage began to control the array. The array lit up and the array that enveloped the Qilin battle stage was opened. Yuan Jie stepped out and landed on the Qilin battle stage. "Huh, Yuan Jie, you're right on time." At this moment, a loud laugh came from another direction. Another young man walked over. This young man was extremely burly and wore a black armor. A domineering aura filled the air. Chu Chengkong. Everyone knew that Chu Chengkong had arrived. Chu Chengkong walked in the air and landed on the Qilin battle stage, facing Yuan Jie. "You're the only one among the 10 prodigies who uses a spear. Coincidentally, I also use a spear. Everyone is comparing the two of us. I'd like to know how strong your spear technique is." Chu Chengkong spoke in a loud and domineering voice. "He'll take your life." Yuan Jie said coldly, and his killing intent intensified. "Ha ha ha, if you can take my life, I can only blame myself for not being skilled enough. But to be frank, you don't have the ability to do so." Chu Chengkong smiled, looking very confident. "Whether I have the ability or not, we'll know in a battle." Yuan Jie's voice was still cold. As soon as he finished speaking, a violent aura erupted from his body. A spear light soared into the sky and pierced through the sky. Roar! 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 The 4 Qilin statues around the Qilin battle stage roared. Then, a light barrier spread out and covered the Qilin battle stage. In this way, no matter how fierce the battle was inside, the energy would not leak out. The long spear on Yuan Jie's back flew out. He held it in his hand and pointed it at Chu Chengkong. "Make your move." Chu Chengkong's eyes were filled with a strong battle intent. A long spear appeared in his hand and a powerful aura was released. Peak of the 3rd layer of the King God realm. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Chu Chengkong and Yuan Jie's cultivation were both at the peak of the 3rd layer of the King God realm. They had not broken through to the 4th layer of the King God realm. There was a big gap between the 3rd layer of the King God realm and the 4th layer of the King God realm. It seemed like many of the top geniuses were at the 3rd layer of the King God realm. Seeing this, Lu Ming heaved a sigh of relief. These people's cultivation was not too strong. Lu Ming had a higher chance of winning. If these people's cultivation had reached the 4th layer of the King God realm or the 5th layer of the King God realm, coupled with their talents, it would be too terrifying. No matter how strong Lu Ming was, he would not be a match for them. However, it made sense. Those who were able to participate in the Great Void Imperial Family's Sacred Institute were not too old. The older ones had already entered the Great Void Imperial Family's Sacred Institute. Therefore, these people's cultivation would not be too high. Boom! Chu Chengkong and Yuan Jie's auras clashed in the air, resulting in a loud explosion. Suddenly, the two of them moved at the same time and charged at each other. The crowd could only see 2 spear lights rushing at each other. They were so fast that it was hard to see them clearly. Chapter 3206. The 2 spear lights collided with each other, then retreated and continued to charge at each other. Clang clang clang, dense sounds of collisions echoed throughout the entire area, and the rumbling continued. In an instant, the two of them had exchanged dozens of blows. Then, both of them retreated and stood in the air. They were evenly matched. The spectators held their breaths in concentration. They all knew that the exchange just now was only a test between the two, and they did not use their full strength. What followed next was the real battle between the two of them. Deadly 18 spears. Yuan Jie said in a cold voice. An ancient and desolate aura emanated from his body. That was the aura of the origin divine power factor, and it was extremely dense. Second awakening of the origin divine power factor. Lu Ming could tell at a glance. This was within Lu Ming's expectations. At this level of cultivation, it was far too difficult to awaken the divine power origin factor a third time. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Lu Ming didn't know if any of the geniuses had awakened their divine powers 3 times. Even if there were, it would be extremely rare. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, spear light bloomed in Yuan Jie's hand. Streaks of pitch-black spear shadows shot toward Chu Qingkong with terrifying killing intent. Fast, it was extremely fast. The life-seizing spear was known as the life-seizing spear. Its greatest power was its speed. Life-reaping spear. Interesting. War God strike. Chu Qingkong said coldly. The armor on his body emitted a dazzling light. As he waved his spear, a huge war god appeared in the sky. This war god was riding on a warhorse. The warhorse stepped into the air and swept its huge spear horizontally, blocking Yuan Jie's spear shadow. There was no doubt that Chu Qingkong's divine power had also undergone a second awakening. The two of them engaged in an intense battle, but for a time, they were still tied. There's no need to test him. Let's go all out and not waste time. Chu Qingkong stepped forward and clenched his fist in the air. The spear in his hand disappeared and was replaced by another ancient stone spear. Tyrant God Spear. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. This was Chu Qingkong's secret skill of origin, which was exactly the same as Lu Ming's secret skill of origin. It was also the tyrannical God Spear. Chu Qingkong's aura became even more violent as soon as he used the secret skill of origin. Boom! The enormous spear light pressed down on Yuan Jie. Lifesteal flash. Yuan Jie let out a long howl. His body began to flicker rapidly. Every time he flickered, a ray of spear light would be thrust at Chu Qingkong. Origin Source Secret Technique. This was also an origin-sourced secret technique that belonged to Yuan Jie. This was their true strength. At the peak of the third sky of King God Realm, the god power of the origin had awakened for the second time, and he had awakened the secret technique of the origin. This kind of competence was enough to crush the other geniuses easily. Unending river of spear Dao. Chu Qingkong waved his spear and a long river appeared around him, surrounding him. This long river was actually completely composed of endless spear lights. War God Strike. With a single glance, Lu Ming could tell that this was a move from the War God Strike. It was extremely powerful. With Lu Ming's current comprehension of the War God Strike, he was still unable to use this move. Chu Qingkong and Yuan Jie were both using their best moves. The intense battle dazzled the eyes of the onlookers. How terrifying. This kind of combat strength is enough to kill an ordinary fifth sky of King God Realm expert. Indeed. A King God Realm expert can kill an opponent 2 levels higher than him. How terrifying. Many people were discussing in astonishment. The two of them continued to exchange dozens of blows, but there was still no clear winner. Yuan Jie, is this all you've got? Then, you'll be defeated. Suddenly, Chu Qingkong let out a long howl. His body swelled rapidly, turning into a giant that was a few hundred meters tall. His aura was obviously stronger than before. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. This was a powerful secret technique. It was not the ancient god body, but it was similar to the ancient god body. It could increase one's strength by leaps and bounds. Boom! Chu Qingkong used this secret technique. With a thrust of his spear, Yuan Jie's spear lights were shattered. Yuan Jie's body shook violently and he was forced to retreat. Yuan Jie was at a disadvantage. After gaining the upper hand, Chu Qingkong launched a torrential attack. After more than 10 blows, Yuan Jie finally gave in. His body crashed into the light shield at the edge of the fighting ring. He spat out mouthfuls of blood and his aura weakened. Defeated. Yuan Jie, one of the 10 heroes of the holy capital, was defeated by Chu Chenkong. Yuan Jie, your strength is only a so-so. I won't kill you today. Get lost. Chu Chenkong waved his hand in a domineering manner. Yuan Jie's face turned ugly. At this moment, the array of the fighting ring opened. Yuan Jie rose into the air and left the place. Yuan Jie was defeated. What a surprise. Although Yuan Jie is ranked at the bottom of the 10 heroes, he was defeated by Chu Chenkong. Chu Chenkong is really terrifying. No wonder he's the strongest supreme talent in the history of the War God clan. With his strength, he should be able to make it to the top 3. It's possible. I just don't know how strong the other supreme talents are. I have a feeling that this battle will be very exciting. Many people were discussing. Among the crowd, some powerful supreme talents, such as Xian Shengxian and the other 10 heroes, had a solemn look in their eyes. Only Di Jiani looked calm. Let's go. Lu Ming said and left with Qiu Autumn Moon and Lan Ling. After watching the battle between Yuan Jie and Chu Chenkong, Lu Ming had a rough idea of his strength. After returning to their residence, the 3 of them continued to cultivate while waiting for the opening of the Great Void Imperial Academy. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. The day of the opening of the Great Void Imperial Academy had finally arrived. Rumble. On this day, a continent appeared in the sky out of thin air. Yes, a platform appeared in the sky. It was so big that it really looked like a continent. Countless people rose into the sky and flew toward the continent. That was because the location of the opening of the Great Void Imperial Academy was on this continent. Lu Ming, Qiu Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling flew to the continent. The continent was very flat and boundless. It was so huge that it could accommodate billions of living beings at the same time. There were many armored soldiers guarding the 4 corners of the continent. They were the experts of the Imperial Guards. They blocked everyone outside. There was a large empty space in the middle. The supreme talents who are participating in the opening of the Great Void Imperial Academy can enter the center. The spectators can stay outside. Those who violate the rules will be punished by military law. In the sky, a burly man in armor spoke. His voice spread throughout the area and made many people's hearts beat faster. He was a general of the Imperial Guards. His strength was extremely terrifying. No one dared to violate the rules because that would be courting death. Immediately, the young supreme talents flew out from the crowd and toward the center area. Look, that's Qian Shengxian. And Di Jiani. And Chu Chenkong. Ah, Chu Chenkong, I love you. Many infatuated girls shouted excitedly when they saw Chu Chenkong. After the last battle, Chu Chenkong's popularity had skyrocketed. Many people thought that Chu Chenkong would definitely enter the top 10 or even the top 3. Chapter 3207. And Su Wuya, Xiaofan, more and more people screamed. The screams at the scene grew louder and louder. Many girls were screaming with tears and snot running down their faces. Su Wuya and Xiaofan were the most outstanding of the 10 heroes of the holy capital. They were considered to be in the top 3. These geniuses were all dragons among men. They were talented and handsome. Most importantly, they had strong backgrounds. Every one of them had countless supporters and fans. He's really popular. Lu Ming was speechless. After this battle, young master will definitely be more popular and have more supporters. Qiu Yu said with a smile. I don't need that many supporters. I only need you as my supporter. Lu Ming said to Qiu Yu. Humph. This scene caused Lan Ling to feel extremely displeased. She let out a cold snort, took a step forward and flew out. Lu Ming and Xiao Yu smiled at each other and flew out as well. One by one, the young elites flew to the center of the platform. There were so many of them that no one knew how many there were. This is too many. Lu Ming was speechless. Lu Ming didn't know how many people there were, but he estimated that there were at least 10 million. Yes, 10 million. The number of participants was truly terrifying. It's normal for there to be so many people. The Taishu Royal Sacred Institute is the sacred place for all the young cultivators of the Taishu dynasty. The elites of the 27 Heavenly Lord mansions, the General's mansions, and the Marquis mansions will all participate. Plus, countless elites of the Taishu dynasty will gather. Lan Ling said. Lu Ming nodded. The Taishu dynasty's territory was too vast. Although there were many people, some of them were still eye-catching in the sea of people. For example, Qian Shengxian of the 10 talents of the Saint Capital and the strongest elite from the Wushuang Mansion, Shui Hen. There were also Di Jiani and Chu Chengkong. These people stood in the crowd while the others stayed far away from them, not daring to approach them. As for Lu Ming, he was submerged in the vast sea of people and was completely inconspicuous. After half an hour, no more young geniuses flew out. Countless geniuses sized each other up. Next, they would all be competitors. Of course, most of the gazes were still on the few people who attracted the most attention. The Sage Emperor has arrived. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the sky and entered everyone's ears. The scene suddenly quieted down. It became silent. Roar, roar, roar. In the distance, dragon roars could be heard. Then, everyone saw 9 divine dragons pulling a war chariot over. Each of the divine dragons was extremely huge. They were tens of thousands of feet long, and their auras were extremely dense. 6-clawed divine dragons, and they are all 6-clawed divine dragons that have reached the Divine Lord realm. Sensing the 9 divine dragons pulling the carriage, Lu Ming's pupils contracted. These 9 divine dragons all had 6 claws on their abdomens. Each one's aura was unfathomably deep. They were shockingly all Divine Lord realm existences. On the chariot behind the 9 divine dragons sat an emperor. This was the ruler of the Taishu dynasty, the current Sage Emperor. The Sage Emperor looked to be in his 60s, and his hair was white. Given the cultivation of the Sage Emperor, if he looked to be in his 60s, his actual age was probably shockingly old. Just by sitting there casually, the Sage Emperor exuded endless majesty. Behind the Sage Emperor were the ministers of the Taishu Sacred Emperor. They were all the higher-ups of the Taishu dynasty, such as the state teacher, the current crown prince, the various princes. Of course, Lu Ming didn't know any of them. Greetings, Sage Emperor. Countless people bowed to the Sage Emperor. Rise. The Sage Emperor waved his hand and said, "The time has come. Let's begin. The rules are the same as before. Those who enter the top 10 can establish their own families. Those who enter the top 3 can make a request of me." The Sage Emperor's words were very concise. Then, a middle-aged man in his 50s stepped out. "It's the state teacher." Many youths whispered. "State teacher." Lu Ming's eyes flashed. This person was the state teacher, the teacher of the current crown prince and a powerful figure in the Taishu dynasty. Because of Wu Fan, Lu Ming would most likely be on the opposite side of this person. Moreover, the biggest suspect in Jing Yu's death was the crown prince. If that was really the case, Lu Ming and this person would be enemies in the future. Therefore, Lu Ming couldn't help but observe for a while. The state teacher looked very majestic, but there was no pressure on him at all. He stood there like an ordinary person. Lu Ming knew that his cultivation was too far away from the state teacher, which was why he felt that way. "I will be the host of this meeting. This meeting of the Sacred Academy will be divided into 4 rounds, stepping on the Milky Way, comprehending Xianhuang, striking the bell and stabilizing the divine throne. The state teacher's voice resounded throughout the hall. Stepping on the Milky Way, comprehending Xianhuang, striking the bell and stabilizing the divine throne, many people murmured and pondered about the meaning of these 4 sentences. At this moment, the state teacher took a step forward and went to the depths of the sky. He waved his hand and his palm emitted a bright light. Then, a Milky Way appeared out of thin air. The Milky Way ran through the starry sky. It was vast and there seemed to be stars in it. The first round is to cross the Milky Way. As long as you can cross the Milky Way successfully, you will pass. Let's begin. The state teacher announced. So it's that simple. Let's go. Let's go. Suddenly, many figures rushed into the sky. Tens of millions of different creatures rose into the sky. The scene was extremely spectacular. In a flash, many people came to the other side of the Milky Way and then rushed into it. When these people rushed into the Milky Way, their bodies trembled violently. Some of them screamed and couldn't stabilize their bodies. They flew downstream. It seemed that there was a powerful force in the core of the planet that was constantly attacking those who entered the Milky Way. Fortunately, those people were only swept away and were not seriously injured. However, some people managed to block it and rushed forward quickly to the other side of the Milky Way. Go, go, go! More young people rushed into the Milky Way. Among them, some people were particularly eye-catching. For example, the 10 heroes of the holy capital, Di Jiani, Chu Chengkong, Qian Shengxian, and the others turned into streaks of light and flew forward at an astonishing speed. It seemed that the power of the Milky Way didn't affect them at all. Soon, they flew across half of the Milky Way. Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling were also about to fly toward the Milky Way. However, Lu Ming felt a few cold murderous intents sweeping toward him from time to time. Lu Ming looked around and noticed some people. A few young men in golden robes glanced at Lu Ming coldly. Without thinking, Lu Ming knew that they were from the Jin family. There were also a few young men in black robes. They looked at Lu Ming unkindly from time to time. Judging by their auras, they should be from the abysmal Heavenly King residence. Humph, let him go now. I'll deal with him later. Let's cross the Milky Way first. A tall young man from the Jin family said coldly. This person was one of the 4 heroes of the Jin family. He was an extremely powerful existence. Chapter 3208. The 4 most outstanding geniuses of the younger generation of the Jin clan were called the 4 heroes of the Jin clan. This title was imitated by the 10 heroes of the holy capital. However, the tragedy was that the other 3 heroes of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan had all died at the hands of Lu Ming. Now, only one of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan was left. It was the one in front of them, Jin Dun. Jin Dun was the strongest of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan. Previously, he had been training outside with the goal of shocking everyone when the Great Void Imperial Family Sacred Academy opened. When he heard about the atrocities that Lu Ming had committed against the Jin clan, he was furious and swore to kill Lu Ming to avenge the other 3 heroes of the Jin clan. However, now was not the time for revenge. There would be plenty of opportunities in the future. After casting a few cold glances at Lu Ming, the few members of the Jin family flew toward the galaxy. Lu Ming smiled faintly. With his current cultivation, he could not be bothered with the small fries of the Jin clan. Their figures moved, and they also charged toward the galaxy. Once Lu Ming entered the galaxy, he felt a strong force hitting him. It was from the upper reaches of the galaxy. It was like a raging wave. The force was shocking. However, this force was nothing to Lu Ming now. He covered his body with divine power and isolated himself from the outside force. He quickly flew forward. On the autumn moon, Lan Ling easily blocked this force and flew forward. Before they were halfway there, the 10 heroes of the holy capital, Xian of 1,000 Xingxian, Emperor Jiani, and the rest had already flown to the other side and successfully crossed the galaxy. However, Lu Ming was not in a hurry. This was only the first stage. Only by walking to the end could he have the last laugh. "Ah, give me a hand. I don't want to be eliminated. No, I can't fail in the first stage." Some of the youths roared and charged forward with all their might. However, they couldn't resist the power at all and were swept down into the lower reaches of the galaxy. Some people came out from the lower reaches of the galaxy and ran back. However, the result was the same. They were swept away for the second time. Only a small number of people were able to resist that power and keep moving forward. Lu Ming, Mid-Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling were very relaxed. Moments later, they had successfully crossed the Milky Way. Their speed was neither slow nor fast. Many people were still struggling. Some people were fast while others were slow. They waited quietly. Some of the slowest people took 3 days to cross the Milky Way. At this point, the first round had ended. Lu Ming glanced over and was secretly speechless. In this round, at least 90% of the people were eliminated. There were originally tens of millions of them, but at least 9 million were eliminated in an instant, leaving only a little over 1 million. Lu Ming finally understood why they had to use this method. There were simply too many geniuses who had signed up for this competition. If they were to use a one-on-one competition, who knew how long it would take? Using this method, those with weak cultivation and insufficient strength could be eliminated very quickly. Those who didn't pass the Star River will be eliminated. Leave the central area immediately and go outside. The Imperial Preceptor gave the order. Those who were eliminated sighed, but they didn't dare to disobey the Imperial Preceptor's order. They could only fly outside. They were originally participants, but now they were just bystanders. When all the eliminated people left the central area, the Imperial Preceptor waved his hand and the Milky Way in the sky disappeared. Then, a mirror appeared in the Imperial Preceptor's hand. The mirror flew out and rapidly expanded. Soon, it turned into a huge mirror and floated in the air. One could see that there were countless small plates on the mirror. In the small plates, there was a round bead the size of an egg. The round beads in these small plates are the seed of black yellow. This round is called Enlightenment of Black Yellow. As the name suggests, it's to comprehend the black yellow. Go up and grab the seed of black yellow. You'll enter a mysterious space. Use your imagination to your heart's content and comprehend whatever you can. Finally, as long as you can make the seed of black yellow germinate, you'll pass. Of course, you only have half a month. The Imperial Preceptor announced. Then, he waved his hand and signaled the start of the competition. Everyone flew up the mirror. There were countless small plates on it. Lu Ming and the others randomly chose a small plate. Lu Ming sat cross-legged beside a small plate and reached out to grab the seed of black yellow. Suddenly, Lu Ming's vision turned black. In the next moment, Lu Ming found himself in a sealed space. The space was not big. It was less than 10 meters in length, width, and height. In the space, there were wisps of chi of black yellow floating around. Looks like this stage tests one's perception and imagination. Lu Ming carefully looked at the chi of black yellow in front of him and began to comprehend. Time passed day by day. Lu Ming was still trying to comprehend. Outside, countless people's eyes were fixed on the mirrors and the geniuses. They saw that all the elites were holding the seed of black yellow and were motionless. We have to pass this round. We have to pass this round. This time, someone from the general's residence must enter the Great Void Imperial Sacred Academy. This time, we have to pass. Many onlookers watched nervously. There were countless people who came from all over the place. The various heavenly kings' residences, the marquis residences, the generals' residences, and many other forces came to watch. For example, the 9 Extinction Heavenly Kings' residence, the 9 Extinction Heavenly King, and the patriarchs of the various major families came. The patriarchs of the various major families also stared at the elites of the various major families. They were extremely nervous. This was because they knew that if one wanted to enter the Great Void Imperial Sacred Academy, there was no need to go through the 4th round. Only by passing the 2nd round would one be able to enter the Great Void Imperial Sacred Academy. Therefore, this round was the most crucial. Time passed quickly. Soon, 10 days had passed. Crack. Suddenly, the sound of glass cracking could be heard. The seed of black yellow in the hands of one of the young men cracked. Then, a tender sprout appeared. As time passed, the tender sprout slowly grew. He did it. My disciple did it. Someone laughed. That young man had successfully germinated the seed of black yellow, which meant that he had passed this round. This young man seemed to have broken the silence. Next, cracking sounds could be heard continuously. More people's seed of black yellow cracked, revealing a tender sprout. Of course, more people did not germinate the seed of black yellow. The strangest thing was that the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital, Di Jiani, Chu Chengkong, Qian Shengxian, and the others did not germinate the seed of black yellow. What's going on? Those who are obviously weaker have germinated the seed of black yellow. Why didn't the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital germinate the seed of black yellow? I don't know. Every time the Imperial Sacred Academy opens, the content of the test is different. I don't know what's going on either. Maybe it's because they're well prepared. Otherwise, it's impossible that no one succeeded. Many people were discussing. As time passed, more and more people succeeded. However, Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling did not succeed. Chapter 3209. 20 days had passed. At this time, those who succeeded had the mysterious yellow seed's tender shoot continuously growing. The tallest one had the mysterious yellow seed grow to a full meter long. Good preparation is the key to success. Good preparation is the key to success. Someone exclaimed. They realized that the later they germinated, the more talented they were, and the longer their buds grew. Of course, they had to germinate before the 30th day. Otherwise, they would have failed after the 30th day. From the 20th day onwards, those who germinated the black-yellow seed were the true elites, and the buds grew longer and longer. The tallest one was 5 meters long, like a small tree. On the 26th day, the black-yellow seed in Lan Ling's hand finally cracked. A bud grew out and started to grow crazily. Soon, it grew to about 6 meters. It was verdant and looked like a real tree. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon's black-yellow seed did not germinate. Time passed quickly, and it was the 30th day. It was the last day. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital, Di Jiani, and the others. Crack. Crack. Almost at the same time, the black-yellow seeds in the hands of the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital, Di Jiani, Chu Chengkong, and the others cracked. Of course, that included Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. After their black-yellow seeds cracked, the buds started to grow crazily. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, soon, it exceeded the previous maximum of 6 meters and continued to grow. Look, Yuan Jie's buds have stopped growing. They've stopped at 6. 5 meters, someone exclaimed. Sure enough, they saw that one of the Holy Capital's 10 prodigies, Yuan Jie's sprout had stopped growing. It was only 6. 5 meters tall. As for the others, they were still growing. Of course, after that, there were people whose buds stopped growing. Look, Di Jian's black-yellow seed is growing so fast. Chu Qingkong and Su Wuya are also very fast. Many people cried out in shock because they realized that these people's Xianhuang sprouts were growing too quickly. They had already surpassed 9 meters and were charging towards a height of 10 meters. Look, those two. Their mysterious yellow tender sprouts are so ferocious. Abnormal, abnormal. Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm, full of shock. Not only them, but the others who saw this scene were also very shocked. These two people were, of course, Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. The mysterious yellow tender buds in their hands also grew at a shocking speed. Its speed was no slower than Di Jian, Chu Qingkong and the others. Nest, who are these people? This is too awesome, I've never seen it before. This stage tests one's perception and imagination. Such speed, perception, and imagination are astonishing. Every time the Great Void Imperial Family Sacred Academy's examination, a dark horse like this would appear. Many people were discussing in shock. It's them. In the crowd, the 9 Absolutes Heavenly King revealed a look of joy. The Wu family's patriarch and experts, who were on good terms with Lu Ming, also looked happy. Lu Ming is amazing. Wu Zifeng and Yu Linglong also came to watch, their faces full of admiration. As for the Jin family, Qin family, and Winged family, they were gnashing their teeth. This kid, the 9 Sabers Heavenly King, also looked at Lu Ming, his eyes emitting a cold murderous intent. Gradually, many of the mysterious yellow tender buds of the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital stopped growing. The 1,000 Shengxian also stopped growing, and the mysterious yellow tender buds stopped growing at 10 meters. Then, Chu Qingkong and Autumn Moon's mysterious yellow tender buds stopped growing at almost the same time. Their mysterious yellow tender buds stopped at 12 meters. Who is this little girl? What terrifying talent! She can actually tie with Chu Qingkong. Chu Qingkong is known as the strongest supreme talent in the history of the War God family. There is no doubt about his talent. This little girl also has such talent. Terrifying. The most terrifying ones are that kid and Di Jian. The scene was noisy, and many people could not remain calm. Now, only Lu Ming, Di Jian, and Su Wuya were still growing their mysterious yellow tender buds. Su Wuya was known as the leader of the 10 heroes of the Holy Capital. His combat strength was unparalleled, and no one could beat him. Now, not to mention combat strength, there were 2 people who could match Su Wuya in terms of comprehension and imagination. After a while, Su Wuya's mysterious yellow tender buds grew slower and slower, and finally stopped at 13 meters. Only Lu Ming and Di Jian's mysterious yellow tender buds were still growing. In the end, both of their mysterious yellow tender buds stopped at 15 meters. 15 meters was 2 meters taller than the Cliff of Nothingness, which was 13 meters tall. This was shocking. Di Jian, a peerless swordsman from the small thousand world, has such talent. Terrifying. This kind of person can be said to be the main character of the small thousand world. However, there are many of them. There are only a few who can rise after entering the great thousand world. The key is, who is the other person? He also has such talent. It's really shocking. Everyone sighed. I know. He is Lu Ming from the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Suddenly, there was a voice. Obviously, it was from the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. He is a supreme talent from the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Brother 9 Extinction, congratulations. The 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion has such a supreme talent. Suddenly, there were Heavenly Kings from other Heavenly King mansions who looked at the 9 Extinction Heavenly King and congratulated him. Humph, he only has better comprehension and imagination. In the end, it still depends on his combat power. If his combat power is not enough, everything is in vain. The 9 Sabers Heavenly King snorted coldly and was very unhappy. Who is the divine king genius who defeated the 9 Sabers Heavenly King Mansion as a heavenly god? The 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion replied faintly. The 9 Sabers Heavenly King Mansion suddenly stopped talking. Everyone was discussing as they waited. 30 days had not passed. Lu Ming and the others had not woken up and did not know their results. In addition, there were many people whose mysterious yellow tender buds had not sprouted. The forces that those people belonged to were sighing. Those who had not sprouted were probably doomed to be eliminated. They did not think that those people were well prepared. Even Di Jieni and the others' mysterious yellow tender buds had sprouted. How could those people be more well prepared than Di Jieni and the others? Those people had not sprouted because they could not let the mysterious yellow tender buds germinate. Very soon, 30 days had passed. Alright, 1 month has passed. This round is over. The Grand Master said. He then waved and a gust of energy spread out. Suddenly, Lu Ming and the others left the space and woke up. After they woke up, they looked at their mysterious yellow tender buds. Mine sprouted. Ha ha ha, mine sprouted. Mine sprouted too. Me too. Those who saw their mysterious yellow tender buds were elated. Mine did not germinate. How could this be? Damn it, D*MN. Many people who did not germinate roared and lamented. They had all kinds of emotions. Chapter 32:10. The 10 heroes of the holy capital, Di Jieni, Chu Qingkong, and the rest looked calm. They glanced at their own buds and then looked at the others. So tall. When their gazes swept past Di Jieni and Lu Ming's fantasy sprout, their pupils could not help but widen, revealing a shocked expression. Their buds were 15 meters tall and stood out from the crowd. It was hard for them not to attract attention. That's terrifying. 15 meters tall. It has surpassed Su Wuya. Di Jieni is still acceptable. Who is that person? How can he compete with Su Wuya? I don't know. Many supreme talents looked at Lu Ming curiously. That included the 10 heroes of the holy capital, Di Jieni, Qian Shengxian, and the rest. Di Jieni was especially surprised to see someone who could compete with him. His eyes lit up and he seemed to be surprised. Humph, it's just a high level of comprehension and imagination. A person's ultimate achievement is not determined by these 2 factors. It depends on his cultivation and combat strength. Chu Qingkong snorted. He was very unhappy. This time, he was full of ambition. He was originally prepared to suppress all the outstanding heroes. In his opinion, in the Taishu dynasty, Su Wuya was the only one who could make him feel pressured. The others were not worth mentioning. However, this time, in the second round, he met several people who had surpassed him. This made him extremely irritable and murderous. Especially when he looked at Lu Ming, his murderous intent intensified. Lu Ming glanced at him calmly. Alright, this round is over. Those who did not make the black-yellow seed germinate have failed. Leave the central area. The Grand Master said. Those who failed could only leave helplessly. There were originally over 1 million people, but now there were only about 100,000 left. Let me tell you a piece of news. If you pass this round, you can join the Taishu Imperial Family Sacred Academy. The Grand Master continued. This piece of news immediately ignited the crowd. The geniuses who passed cheered excitedly. As for those who failed, their faces were ashen. Especially those who failed in the second round, they were extremely vexed. They were just 1 step away from entering the Taishu Imperial Family Sacred Academy. Although you can enter the Great Void Imperial Academy, there is still a 3rd and 4th round. The Imperial Preceptor continued, of course, if you want to withdraw from the third or fourth round, you can still join the Great Void Imperial Academy. Now, does anyone want to withdraw? No one moved by themselves. What was the purpose of joining the Great Void Imperial Academy? One of the reasons was that there was a good cultivation environment in the Taishu Imperial Academy. Another reason was that he could enter various departments and be entrusted with important tasks. He would rise step by step and eventually become a pillar of the Taishu dynasty. He would become a great figure in the Taishu dynasty. The next 2 rounds would be the time for them to perform. If they performed well, they would not only be favored by the Sage Emperor, but also by the marshals and generals of the other armies. In the future, they would have a much better chance of developing themselves in these armies. If he backed out now, he would definitely be looked down upon by others. Therefore, no one backed out. Since no one is quitting, let's proceed to the third round. The state preceptor waved his hand, and the mirror and the black-yellow seed disappeared. Following that, a huge bronze bell flew out from his hand. As soon as the bell flew out, it quickly grew in size and eventually filled the entire sky. Then, stone platforms appeared around the bell and floated in the air. There were at least 100,000 stone platforms. Each of you choose a stone platform and get on it. The state preceptor said. Then, the crowd randomly chose a stone platform and flew onto it. Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, and Lan Ling's stone platforms were next to each other. Alright, I will now announce the rules of the third round. The rules of this round are called the Sky Striking Bell. It's very simple. You will attack the bell. In the end, the remaining 10,000 people on the stone platforms will enter the next round. The state preceptor announced. Attack the bell, and the remaining 10,000 people on the stone platforms will enter the next round? What kind of rule is that? Many people were puzzled. Let's begin. You will start. The state preceptor pointed at a young man. The young man's expression changed. Then, he looked at the bell in front of him with a solemn expression. A powerful aura emanated from his body. Boom! The young man threw a punch. A huge fist print blasted toward the bell in front of him. However, when the fist print hit the bell, it did not cause any ripples or sound. It was like a stone sinking into the sea. What's going on? Many people were puzzled. There was no movement. How could anyone be eliminated? Suddenly, someone felt that the bell seemed to vibrate slightly. Then, a burst of energy burst out and rushed toward the young man just now. The young man's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly blocked, but when the energy hit him, his body trembled violently. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his body was sent flying out of the stone platform. Eliminated. Once he left the stone platform, he would be eliminated. Let me tell you. If you don't ring the bell, you will be eliminated by the force of the bell. The state preceptor explained. Everyone came to a realization. It turned out that they had to ring the bell. Let me try. A young man spoke. A battle axe appeared in his hand. He channeled his divine power and exerted his full strength. The battle axe slashed toward the bell. A huge battle axe light slashed toward the bell. Clang! This time, the battle axe light hit the bell and made a loud sound. The bell vibrated and emitted a bright light. However, in the next moment, everyone's expression changed. That was because the battle axe light was repelled by the bell. However, the direction of the battle axe light changed. It did not fly toward the young man just now. Instead, it flew toward another young man. The young man's expression changed drastically. He roared and unleashed his divine power. He punched out with both palms. A huge palm print flew out, trying to block the battle axe light. The battle axe light and the palm print collided, making a loud sound. However, it was obvious that the battle axe light was stronger. After a few breaths, it broke through the palm print. When the palm print collapsed, the young man who blocked it with his palms suffered a huge impact. His body could not help but be sent flying out of the stone platform's range. As soon as he flew out of the stone platform's range, his face turned pale. Flying out of the stone platform was equivalent to being eliminated. Eliminated. The state preceptor waved his hand. The young man sighed and left the place. Now you can see it. If you don't have enough strength to attack the bell won't ring. Instead, you will be sent flying out of the stone platform by the bell's force. If you have enough strength to ring the bell, the force of your attack will be repelled by the bell. Of course, it will be repelled toward the others. If you can't withstand it and are sent flying, you will be eliminated. The state preceptor explained a few more words. Everyone came to a realization. So that was the rule. If you can't ring the bell, you will be eliminated. If you can ring the bell, you will have to guard against the attacks of others. No one knew who the rebound of the bell would hit. Chapter 32:11. When the crowd looked at the 10 heroes of the holy capital, Di Jiani, Xian Shengxian, and Chu Chengkong, their expressions became more serious. If they were unlucky, their attacks would be reflected back to them. Who could block it? We can only rely on luck. Some people sighed helplessly. They only hoped that the strongest supreme talents would not use their full strength when attacking the bell. Otherwise, not many people could block it. This round will depend on strength and luck. Let's continue. The Grand Master said. Next, more people attacked. A young man attacked with all his might. However, before the bell rang, he was sent flying by the rebound force of the bell. They continued to the next one. One by one, they attacked. However, less than half of them could make the bell ring. Those who could make the bell ring would have their attacks reflected back to their opponents. Some people would be sent flying off the fighting ring. However, those who were stronger could block the attack. Clang! Another young man rang the bell. The bell buzzed and deflected his attack. A sword light was sent flying towards one of the 10 prodigies of the holy capital. This genius of the 10 prodigies of the holy capital was called Han Shao. His strength was also shocking. He extended a hand and slapped out. The sword chi flying towards him changed direction and flew towards another young man. Not only did he block it, but he also changed the direction of the attack to form a second attack. However, the attack did not increase. The young man who was attacked was shocked. He tried to block it, but he could not block it and was sent flying. Many people's eyes lit up when they saw this. It seemed that this round of attacks was not only random, but could also be controlled. As long as one was strong enough, they could change the direction of the attack and attack the enemy they wanted to attack. Suddenly, some of the supreme talents who had grudges against each other started to size each other up. Cold light flashed in their eyes. Lu Ming saw that Jin Dun, one of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan, and the supreme talent of the abysmal Heavenly King mansion were looking at Lu Ming with evil intentions. From then on, all the supreme talents on the stone platform became more alert and focused. Next, the people continued to attack. Soon, a few hundred people were eliminated. Whoosh! Finally, an attack flew towards Jin Dun, the genius of the Jin clan. Ha! Jin Dun shouted. His body emitted a golden light, and his hands turned pure gold. He displayed the hand of void severing, and continuously slapped forward. With a series of explosions, the attack that was flying towards him was not only blocked by him, but also changed direction and flew towards Lu Ming. This Jin Dun was obviously targeting Lu Ming, wanting to send Lu Ming flying. Anyway, Jin Dun's competence surprised Lu Ming. He had the cultivation base of the 3rd sky of King God realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to change the direction of the others' attacks. His cultivation was much stronger than the other geniuses of the Jin clan. Whoosh! This attack flew towards Lu Ming in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming threw a punch and a few nine-clawed divine dragons condensed continuously. They flew forward and collided with the attacks that were directed at him. However, he managed to block them. He had some strength. Many people were surprised, but they weren't too surprised. After all, Lu Ming had won first place in the second round, and was ranked with Emperor Jian. It wasn't surprising that he had such strength. Let me. At this moment, a young man spoke. Yuan Jia is going to attack. Someone exclaimed. Many people became nervous. Yuan Jia was one of the 10 greats of the holy capital. How strong was he? If his attack was reflected, it would be terrifying. How many people could withstand it? Many people started to pray that Yuan Jia's attack wouldn't be reflected on them. At this moment, Yuan Jia attacked. However, he didn't use his full strength. He just casually pointed his finger, and a spear light shot out from his finger towards the bell. Dong! As expected, the bell rang, emitting a dazzling light. Then, the spear light was reflected back towards a young man. That young man became nervous. He exhaled, and all the divine power in his body burst out. His strength was at its peak. Second sky of King God Realm, awakened divine power. Many people were surprised. This young man was also very strong. He had awakened divine power and his cultivation base had reached the second sky of King God Realm. Among all the sky prides, he could be ranked in the upper middle. Wave parting palm. The young man shouted, and both of his palms struck out. Waves of palm energy formed a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Boom! 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 The palm energy collided with the spear light, and there were continuous explosions. In the end, the spear light was blocked. The young man took a few steps back, but he didn't get out of the stone platform. Phew! The young man let out a long breath and relaxed. The others also felt lucky for the young man. It was obvious that Yuan Jia had only casually struck out. Otherwise, the young man wouldn't have been able to block it. The attacks continued. Soon, it was Qian Shengshuan's turn. Everyone became nervous again. In their hearts, Qian Shengxian was a peerless genius on par with the 10 greats of the holy capital. However, Qian Shengxian didn't intend to use his full strength. They couldn't control who their attacks were aimed at, so there was no point in using his full strength. What if his attacks were aimed at one of their own? Therefore, Qian Shengxian only casually struck out. Her attack was reflected, and it was aimed at a young man. That young man wasn't as strong as the one who had been attacked by Yuan Jia. Even though he had used all his strength, he couldn't block it and was thrown out of the stone platform. Next, every time it was the 10 greats of the holy capital's turn to attack, everyone became nervous. However, they were just casually attacking, so their attacks weren't particularly strong. Some people managed to block the attacks, while others didn't. As time went by, the number of people around the bell decreased. At first, it was 100,000, then 90,000, then 80,000. Clang! The bell rang again. This time, it was an attack from a genius in the third King God realm. Although he wasn't as strong as the 10 greats of the holy capital and Chu Chengkong, he was still very powerful. The attack flew directly toward Chu Chengkong. The corners of Chu Chengkong's mouth curled into a sneer. He condensed a spear with his divine power and swung it. The attack was sent flying in another direction. That direction was where Lu Ming was. With a terrifying whistling sound, the attack flew towards Lu Ming. Many people fixed their gazes on Lu Ming. This was an attack from a genius in the third King God realm. Although he hadn't used his full strength, could Lu Ming block it? This guy. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Obviously, Chu Qingkong had recognized him after he had killed several geniuses of the Chu family. That was why he had sent the attack towards him. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.